stayed awake last night, 'cause I couldn't close my eyes and see you another night. I drove myself crazy thinking you'd take my wildest dreams and tear them all to the ground. So I tried to create a decoy world for you to destroy in my mind. You could stay and believe you're tearing me apart while I'm coming to life, while I'm coming to life. Couldn't keep the secret. You found my darkest demons and brought them out in the light. So I ran to all the preachers, despite having every reason to shut down and mobilize. So I prayed to the gods for one last saving grace against all odds, and I built an escape using all my energy just to come back to life, back to life.
Happy Monday, everybody. And I know it's the start of the week. You probably just got back from enjoying the weekend, but I think this is a great way to start off the week for the Paladin Central Minor League. I'm Fawn, joined here by Kresnik once again. Of course, Jithan's back in the broadcast room, or broadcasting or doing production. I'm really, really happy to be here this Monday. And I hope you guys are ready to see the awesome games that we have in EU and North America.
Yeah, with 4 games today on the bracket, with just me and you here today, Fawn, too. We're definitely in for the long haul, as I dramatically realized that I have upped my bitrate far too high on my camera, as I'm sure you can see on your end. I'm not decaying. That is simply me typing in a few of the wrong numbers there. But definitely happy to see this week in PCML. We're going to see 4 different games. We're going to see the bronze game in EU is where we're going to start Washed Up versus Crescent. Now, Washed Up, a team that I want to say we got to see. No, not Washed Up. Crescent's a team that was succeeding a little bit in previous weeks. Washed Up, we've seen some of their players before, not necessarily all as one unit, but seeing them together, we'll see how Washed Up will kind of stack up against a team that's made some roster changes, picked up players that were on EU5 heads previously and have looked pretty decent in the previous weeks.
And I think that's what's so interesting about the PCML is that it feels like we've almost seen some new team almost every week, right? Different players that are trying to join into the scene and really play and get a chance to win at some high-level Paladins, probably some of the highest level caliber you can play, of course, next to the PPC. So you see a whole bunch of people in here that you see quite frequently, and especially with loading vendors into the next match, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Of course, we have to focus on this game, so let's head into the picks and bans for the very, very first match for Crescent versus Washed Up, and I want to see what the map is. It's going to be Jaguar Falls. Okay.
Standard, start with flexibility. We're gonna see Xin, Lex, Moji. Maybe all of them are playable here on Jaguar Falls. Not that Xin's not playable everywhere, though. So I'm not sure why that's the point I was hammering home. But Torvald's going to be also playable everywhere. Torvald taken out as the first ban from Washed Up. Makes sense. He is one of the stronger picks in the game right now in general, whether you're in controller ranked, whether you're in keyboard and mouse ranked. You don't want whoever the best player on the other team is getting 1,000 or 1,375 extra health every few seconds on either end of it.
Exactly. And Torvald's such a consistent
Io.
That's right. That's right. We're
still never going to see her.
To mention that. Right, exactly. I mean, we do need to mention that, but I'm actually glad to see this ban come through because Io, off of the competitive ban list, she is able to be played in these matches, both in here and in the PPC. So we'll probably see her return to the ban column on both a lot more. She is back in the game, but obviously most teams don't want to see her there, so she's probably going to... You'll see her making a guest appearance in the ban column as opposed to the usual suspects. Torvald, Xin, Io, and Makoa all out of the pool here in terms of characters that can be picked, but of course it leaves open the Genos, and it leaves open the Corvus, and a lot of other very high priority targets.
Off-tank's going to be the name of the game, though, with Torvald and Makoa banned. You want maybe an off-tank that can get a little aggressive, that can also use that ceiling cancel inside of a lot of rooms on this map to get quick ultimates off, and that's going to be Ashe. So Ashe, the first pick for Washed Up, definitely winning in the off-tank department. Also, especially with Atlas being now the one replacing Io in that competitive ban kind of range, you're going to have less counters, really, to it. But Genos and Andrew on the other side is a great start for a potentially triple DPS composition, maybe for Crescent. You could also go some sustaining main tanks, of course, but having an Andro who can do a lot of damage, dash over the Ashe shield and pressure her a lot can be great. But now he's going to have to deal with a Tiger, who we don't normally see on a map like Jaguar Falls.
Genos and Droxus on the side of Crescent. Meanwhile, Ashe and Tiberius are on the side of Washed Up. A map that we don't typically see him on, which is what I believe you were getting at, Kresnik, is the fact that we've seen him more on Ice Mines than being a comfort pick in any of these other maps. But Washed Up feel like they have the means of making it work here. With the Corvus, I'm very willing to believe that this Tiberius and this Ashe will have a way easier time. But the Inara on the side of Crescent, I see you making a face there. Is that because of the potential Genos issue? Like, do you not feel like Inara has enough sustain to keep herself alive with this?
I think Inara does, but I think it's you're definitely putting yourself in a more difficult position. But I understand wanting to get it taken away from them. Inara Corvus is a great combo, and if you're comfortable enough on main tank, I want to say Vinaroso is the main tank for Crescent. If he's comfortable enough playing this Inara with this Genos, it can work out. Inara does a lot of damage, and 15% more definitely helps. But when you're getting poked by a Tiberius and Vivian all game, that sustain, you're really going to be missing just the tiniest hint of a burst heal. I can actually see Crescent maybe ending with another support here, whether it be a Pip or not a Grok into this comp, but a Pip or a Grover could actually fill out their comp pretty well if they feel like they are a little healing deficient.
Yeah, Grover is definitely a character that I agree I can see on the other side of Crescent. Such a common pick on the side on Jaguar Falls specifically, and a character that people have jumped at trying to lock in. But it's actually going to be
Not
the ROM, which I
subservient?
mean, I mean,
No, there's no way.
I don't see the possibility of that actually happening on the ROM. I don't think he's going to go the healer ROM build because I think they just want to be aggressive here. Let's head right into the game on Jaguar Falls. This is the very first match of the EU Bronze Circuit or EU Bronze League. As we are going to head right on into it. And of course, obviously, he's going to take Enforcer. Yeah, no subservience for all you healer ROM fanatics out there. All two of you, I would say. So that's a very, very unfortunate reality for that to be the case. But even still, I mean, you have the booby trap. I mean, you have the potential to really lay into both ROM and Anar, and it makes me a little bit more concerned seeing
The
booby
battle
trap
has
as opposed
begun.
to opportunity and chaos. It makes it very, very difficult to play into that on point when you're getting poked for 600 every time.
Yeah, for
We
sure.
could use some help from the front line.
Play off the side right now. Picking it up for washed up. They actually have pretty good map control already with this side, but they are getting wrapped and they need to continue rotating, I think, if they want to avoid getting pinched. But Crescent's moving already.
It's like Rom wants to move in, and that's not the first blood I would have thought to see, but Genos is going to pick off Fernando first. And the kills are checkerboarding right now. It seems like things have been traded out at the end of the day for 2 for 2, but Vivian, she wants to uneven the odds here. Nara makes it back to the objective. She's going to be the last one to fall, but she's just trying to stall for as long as she can. That Earthen Guard keeps him up and alive for a little bit longer, but of course, Washed Up are the ones that take control over the objective at the end of the day. This Vivian is making a lot of noise right now in terms of where she's standing, the positioning she has, and the damage she is outputting.
Controlling the map basically hardcore. Actually, both DPS almost have their ultimates already. Tiger already has his end. They have the burn to get through this ROM, but Casper there on the main line catches Kusek on the rotation, even if Healing gets the trade.
And it seems like for the most part that is 84% to 57, as they are going to have to back off. Tiberius is making sure that they are trying to escape here, but it seems like the blade dance is causing quite a few issues at the most. So it seems like they're going to be able to capture things first off on the side of Crescent, as now Vivian is sort of just chilling. Everyone else wants to move in, and Rom wants to be the one to start things off, firing directly into the Ash. Things are a little bit harder for him. You have the Androxus and you have the Rom. Make sure he gets killed, but beautiful accursed arm, man. You get that double kill, and that's already a beautiful start to how Crescent wants to keep rolling this cart right on in. Ash tries to back out, but the shoulder bash, of course, going to get body blocked by the Androxus. And with only 2 minutes on the clock, the car has made significant progress, and Wash Up are looking very, very similar to what their name would indicate right now, as Crescent are really putting the hurt on them.
They got plenty of time to see if they can finish getting clean here, but Bully, speaking of clean, he had a clean 4K to open that push up. But when you play an Inara Janos comp, when you play a comp like this, you really are relying very heavily on your DPS. Casper and Bully really have to kind of hold the weight of the world on their shoulders, and they seem to be doing it so far as they walk in. Yorlax not looking up, and he'll be the first to fall.
Blade Dance wants to be something that can see if they can find the picks they need to. They at least find 2 kills. It becomes a lot easier, but a beautiful Cataclysm finds 2 stuns immediately, cripples the Tiberius, lower than half HP as he has to leap out and try and find a better vantage point. Void Grip directly onto the Vivian, but she gets taken down immediately as Tiberius is firing freely into Rom. He's not going to be able to get the pick, though. Juggernaut is going to cause him to run off and then, of course, run right back in as soon as his teammates make it back to the appropriate position. You have the Assert Dominance trying to be used, but she dies in midair. You find plenty of shots as the Androxus to see if you can use that verticality to your advantage, and it seems like it is curtains for Fernando. Same thing for the rest of the members who are trying to contest, and Crescent make this a 2-up.
Yeah, even with that Corvus doing great healing, I think Happy did a fantastic job keeping Nealon alive. When you have to focus your healing on your backline, then your tanks suffer a little bit more on the objective. We saw Gidet trying to live as long as he could, but literally just couldn't make it happen, trying to survive with just a shield up in front of that whole line that they had. Bully that fight went on long enough for him to charge another accursed arm. The way that they're playing this, kind of patient. Vinaroso is not sacrificing a lot of his health pool. If anything, Kofigs, aka CEO of Shaolin, is the one who's absorbing a lot of this pressure for him because he has that self heal. He has the ability to run away, and when they try to chase him down, when someone tries to spend a cooldown to finish off this kill, that's when the DPS can get that cleanup. Whether it be Bully from above or Casper from the back line, both of them are connecting the shots that they need to make this composition work.
It seems like Androx wants to move into the back. This accursed arm could be huge if he gets in a good enough position. It seems like he will. He wants to move in, but the sensor drone is going to be enough to reveal him. He doesn't get the full-on flank, but the seismic crash is what they want to use to see if they can make this work. But he used it to pretty much defend himself. If anything, it's not in range to protect anyone else. A certain dominance in secret, locking multiple members down on the side of Crescent, but you still have a one-for-one trade. It's about even as the fight is starting to whittle down. This is race against the clock, or the percentage, I should say. This is 97% already. No one else was able to touch on the side of Crescent. No one else really went for it, and therefore they end up losing that point to Washed Up, but they get the opening kill as soon as the cart is captured. It forces out the Entropic Breach just for a little bit of DR. He needs to be able to try and escape from there. Corvus and Vivian are trying to back up. Meanwhile, Fernando's in a precarious position because he has to find some sort of way to get out, but he gets void gripped and taken down. Through time and space gets used on stairs. Not going to be able to find the pick, but they are going to be able to find the next one onto Ash.
And Bully's keeping up the pressure for now, but I think this might end up being a reset depending on how far Vinaroso goes here, who is taking a lot of room. But actually, wait, no, Kofigs is running in the back, and we got some through-wall Shaolin shots because of the spectator jump catch there. But Washed Up, even after that capture, they did it because of stunning the Inara off of the point. Vinaroso never really able to contest, but I like the pressure that Crescent are keeping up. They can afford to do this as long as they don't commit and take a little bit too much damage for their Genos to heal back up.
Chakram's being tossed out, lowering a lot of health pools, but they lose Corvus on the way in that push. He used the Blade Dance, though. They want to make this value as they use the Accursed Arm, pump it all into Vivian. That's going to be all she wrote for the DPS. Now Fernando, still alive for a little bit longer. Not going to be able to find the shot that puts him in the dirt, but he is going to be able to find the shots that allow them to move back in, just like this by the staircase, but so much AoE damage. They're getting grouped up pretty heavily. They have to find some sort of way out. They're firing as best as they can, because it is trying to work out for them. They are seeing if they can find a better opportunity for themselves, but Androx is on the side against Tiberius. He wants that duel, as they manage to take care of Yorlak as well. It's so hard for them to sort of fight back, as it makes it really, really annoying to try and push forward when people keep getting picked off. But I think Washed Up have to get their wits about them. They can't keep slacking like this if they want to try and win against Crescent.
Yeah, it's so hard for them to actually deal with Bully here on this Androx. It really feels like he is just controlling the game to a point on this Andro. Finally does fall to this Vivian, but look how little progress they've had. I get that an overtime push can be long, but this is a big ask for the members of Washed Up to actually push this all the way. And if anything, at this point, if this fight goes longer, this is just letting Crescent get all their ultimates. Bully is the only one without one, and he will have time to charge that up, but we'll see how aggressive they want to play on this flank. Again, they have a Genos, so I think they want these fights to end quickly, and looks like this ROM juggernauting in will prove that.
Yeah, you put up the reversal as Androx says, but it seems like a lot of people want to move to where he is. See if they can find the pick, but they don't. He does use the nether step, and of course repositions himself enough in a way that he will be able to get the kill. Nyland goes down soon after that. As a Fernando gets void gripped, he gets killed, and that's pretty much it for this round. Crescent in plenty of control here, 98% for Androxus as well, and makes the 100 at the last possible second off of the next shot. So 5 ultimates up and available to him, but the same can be said about Washed Up. That Immortal can play a huge factor here depending on who forces the engagement here, but the Cataclysm, he's been hitting a lot of those in a lot of these closed off areas. He's forcing a lot of people out, especially by Sun, but it's a little bit worrying if I'm Washed Up. Being down 1-3, even though you have 5 ultimates, Crescent have been showing that theirs hit a little bit harder. They know when to use it.
The biggest thing here is that I think Crescent's ultimates don't scale as well into the late game, which we're starting to get into here. If Washed Up's, though, I mean, they're going to be good from start to finish. Ash, yes, you don't get stunned as long, but it's not like she's any less invincible when you have Resilience 3, so having this combination of the Immortal and the Assert Dominance versus double CC ultimates exclusively coming out of Crescent change things. So they're going to try to use it early. They catch Cadet, but no one's there to do the damage in time.
No, but they do at least make it in the tail end of things. Assert dominance by Sun as they have to back up. The wall goes up and at least keeps them out for a little bit longer. Gives Crescent some time to readjust their positioning and think about a different way to tackle this incoming fight. They lost one. They have to play a little bit more careful. Uses the Heat Haze defensively. He doesn't want to get caught out here as Ash is maintaining control over the objective. Androxus with the flank in the back means that, of course, people have to recognize that they need to look at him, but he gets crippled through time and space. Finds one. That's a good one-for-one trade. Now it seems like the Androxus might end up losing a little bit here. Beautiful bounce. I don't know if he meant to do that, but it certainly looked cool doing it. 2 kills already for the Tiberius as they focus down the Inara on point. 54% to 51. As Washed Up seem like they will be locking this dub on this round for themselves. Ram, of course, wants to make it all the way back, but will that be enough to stall for a little bit longer? He gets crippled, and he's going to be able to live for quite some time, actually, a lot longer than I suspected him to. He's still alive and manages to almost make it back in. He got time to get another Juggernaut, but there's nothing else they can really do here on the way in on the side of Crescent. Washed Up, they're going to take the second point against him, and they're starting off way better than they did last time.
No Immortal needed too, either. Weirdly enough, they managed to hold on to that ultimate for a little bit of time here as Washed Up are getting really aggressive. Just got to be careful to stay in line of sight of their healer, but I guess they don't need it. Body blocked, though, is Yorlak, and now the Immortal comes out, but it's way too late, Fawn. It's going to let them stabilize.
Yeah, it's going to force out the reversal at least a little bit. He's looking at too many people, messes up the nether step, catches himself on the wall. That allows Washed Up to commit to that kill that they were looking for. It seems like, for the most part, things are a little bit harder for them to defend, on the side of Crescent. Those drones are hitting, and they're hitting hard. Hard to sort of maintain the control over the objective that you may want, especially with the cart rolling, and it feels like it hasn't even stopped. A Cursed Arm looking for an opportunity, tries to go for Corpus, doesn't quite find it, forces him out, as now the rest of the members on the side of Washed Up are still going to be able to find those kills in the long run. And Corvus still alive. They're probably going to end up rolling this one in. No one else really has the health pool to contest since Ron does have a Juggernaut. There's no DR for him to get onto the objective.
Yeah, you can't make it anywhere in and Washed Up. They kept them literally locked in spawn this entire time. Kusa cleaning up 2 more after that. Him and Naylan are the ones having the best games, I think, for them so far. Could I actually see the build on the Vivian really quickly? I'm kind of curious to see how he's changed things in this new patch. And Nowhere to Hide 4 is the one I was thinking of. He seems to be pretty good at catching people out on that and having that long reveal after the booby trap, the sensor drone in general gets blown up, helps you with that significantly. Means that even if you blow that up, even if you peek it for 1 second, you are still exposed for a little while afterwards. But nothing else really too shocking there. Lifesteal, of course, completely gone, but nothing crazy there. Not a lot of ultimates for Crescent. They tried to use Seismic Crash and a Cursed Arm to stabilize this one out, and Assert Dominance from Washed Up can win this fight immediately if they use it right.
Seems like for right now they are getting forced back as Vivian is forced to take another position. It seems like everyone's swinging around to see if they can stop anything. Cataclysm in the back lines. Assert Dominance in Sun, and that's going to be enough to catch him lacking. If anything, double kill for Crescent. The same can be said about Washed Up. They've made things even for themselves, as now Tiberius has to back up. They get the kills on the side of Washed Up, though, which is exactly the type of play that you want to be able to have. 54% to 21. As Washed Up have been holding control very, very well in terms of the objective timer, but Crescent, they can make it back, but they can't lose anyone on the way in. They do allow Rom to touch, so that's at least a good look for him to have a better position. Yeah,
and he's pinching them now, but he's going to have to be the one to get second touch, and even as he goes in, no Juggernaut there. In the worst case scenario, they lose shot first.
Yorlak, Neelan are both going to get the kills here as Neelan finds himself a double. They use the Immortal just to make sure they submit their objective on the point. A quadra kill for the Tiberius, and that makes it a 4-3 for Washed Up on Jaguar Falls.
Tiger, I think, is an unexplored character on maps that aren't ice mines, so I think you can run him, if you're comfortable with him, almost anywhere. And I think Neelan clearly has put in that time to make it work, seeing this Tiger win these duels, use the blades for the slows. Also, I kind of like the counter pick even though they picked it really early, I like it into the tanks on the other side. I think having those slows is just good when they try to get through. If they try to escape, you can stop them completely. I'm assuming he changed. I don't know how to say his new name, so I'm going to keep calling him Nylon. But this Tiger really impressed me, I think, across this game.
And it seems like the slash lines, of course, are indicative of how well washed up played that. Crescent had so much control earlier on. And I think it's important to ask this as the game went on. Obviously, we mentioned the fact that the Yanara, the ROM, they didn't have quite the healing they may have been looking for, and yet Genos ends up out healing them as a whole. Is it really the Corvus sustain that allowed them to win that more effectively? Because we mentioned it earlier about sort of the battle of the healers, how we felt like the Genos was going to do compared to the Corvus, especially with the Nanara ROM, such high health pools. Do you feel like the Corvus hit the mark, even though they only have a little bit less healing than the Genos?
I mean, I think so, because it let them do more damage in general, right? It let them stay in the fights longer to do damage. Normally, you'd see, even if the Genos team loses, they tend to outpace in the stat department,
Right.
specifically in the DPS department. But about 30k more from both Kusik and Nylon here from the Tiger and Vivian, respectively. They were just outpacing the competition. Yes, they were fighting a ROM that does boost your stats a bit, but generally, again, the Genos kind of offsets that a little bit. So I think Corvus just giving them those passive boosts constantly, giving the speed stacking with the combat trance, giving the speed stacking with Vivian's base speed in general, it let them just rotate away constantly and choose only the fights they wanted to take.
Yeah, not quite the performance that Crescent may have been looking for, but of course, Washed Up were able to make things work out very, very well for them. I'm curious to see how the draft adapts even more so as we head into picks and bans for game number 2. This is match point for Washed Up. They could end up taking this one away, but it's going to be Splitstone Quarry this time around. A wider map. Do you feel like the aspect of exploring Tiberius once again might be something they try and go for? Is there anything that stood out to you as to why they picked the Tiberius as the match evolved on Jaguar?
It could be all. It could have honestly been just to deny Tiger from being against them, because Tiger into Nando Ash would have been pretty rough. But also, of course, Nando looked incredibly comfortable on it. And there's also a lot of tight places for the bounces to work too. Inside Dark, inside Sun, inside Secret, even over by Face on that final push area if it comes down to it. But I could also just be a comfort thing. I don't know if I expect to see it on this map. I think there's a few less places to bounce off of, and I think that in general the jump is a little bit less effective at getting you onto the high ground on this map, even if the Blade Dance can do that. But Ruckus, we're going to see him taking top priority. It's a great map for him on Splitstone. Anytime you can get above and behind, you can shred into an enemy team, and Washed Up now have to be really careful about who they play to stack up on their backline.
Yeah, I definitely am not feeling a little bit more comfortable with picking a Victor or a Tyra or any sort of backline DPS into that Ruckus, but they are going to lock in the Genos once again, or I believe, excuse me, they are going to lock in the Genos this time around, is what I should refer to that as they are going to have some damage amp in their back pocket. They have the Androxus, so of course a very consistent flank, good damage, but that leaves the Zen open. And of course that means Crescent, they're going to lock it in. Too good of a flank not to have on the side of Crescent, especially if you lead things off with another off tank like Ruckus, means that they'll have a lot more aggression in the back pocket if they wish for that to be the case. And I can only imagine that it might be a Corvus lock-in. Who knows on the side of Crescent?
Could be, just to get rid of the Genos Corvus. You know that those two stacking up onto an Antro will be insanely hard to deal with. You know who the strat now is, Fawn? No tanks. That's the strat now. Absolutely no. How can you get guillotined? You can't get guillotined if your regular spite will kill me anyway. So, never mind.
Okay, all right.
They were just taking the draft that they just beat last game. Literally, the same order so far from Washed Up. Things are looking similar in terms of, I think, the picking order here too. But now Maeve will pair with the Genos and the Andro instead. So now we have double vertical flankers, which helps significantly on a map like Splitstone Quarry when high ground is king here. Makoa will help fill in the draft for Crescent, will be the main tank on the point with Half Shell, and they're not really going to be able to break through that shield that well, but honestly, that's a good thing, because now I think these DPS players aren't going to be tempted to shoot the shield and give Makoa a free cooldown more. They have to grab that Cassie, though, in response for Crescent. That would have been actually a stellar pick for Washed Up if they ended up with it. Having big game into Makoa and Ruckus would have been crazy, but instead, they're going to pick up the Kinessa. The only one who can really deal with it is that Ruckus, so this Kin might have a decent time here sitting on the high ground.
Yeah, she might get dove a lot is how I would phrase that one. With the Ruckus and Zen breathing down your neck, it's hard to do much of anything, even with a Genos buff at your back. 15% is great, but I don't know how she's going to fare into both Ruckus and Zen. Of course, Teleporter is different than having the stealth that Strix has, so she has that instant getaway, but that's a time that you have to spend walking back to your previous position if they aren't already still there. Whose draft do you like more here?
God, it's hard for me to say. Now that they have the kin, I feel like I might want to lean more towards Washed Up. I feel like they can keep their distance. It's about if that Xin can make it to the high ground, right? How well do Washed Up stop this Xin from crossing that gap into the Kinessa, making them Makoa's life a little bit harder?
Well, let's head into the game on Splitstone Quarry. Was Crescent wrong in their Genos pick last time, or is Washed Up just that good with the Genos this time? We have the same combo, the Inara, the Genos. We've had discussion about it before. Definitely want to see it in action this go around, especially on a map like Splitstone. It's going to be a lot harder for Inara to be in a position where she can just wall off and really not worry about much of anything, right? Splitstone is a much wider map. You can't really lock people down like that because of the amount of distance you can cross.
Yeah, we'll see as we head out from a pause there in the pregame. Nothing too shocking, I think, in the talent screen there near the end. I like the use of the impulse, of course, into the double flanker, and the Kinessa from the Cassie. It makes a lot of sense, but not a lot of consistent long range damage from Crescent. They don't necessarily need it though, as long as their dive works out. But they are definitely putting a lot of eggs in the Ruckus basket. Yoinko in chat mentioned that the dive, they didn't have a target to dive before, but I guess Washed Up, they'll just go first. That's their game plan, as Rengo gets deleted.
But they've just swapped spots, if anything. Their healer may be gone, but they did take care of the Kinessa. They're in the back line, living rent-free, as far as I know, as they want to see if they can take care of Casper. They do get rid of him, and Makoa is the next on the menu to get served up as they find that kill. Now Ruckus is standing on the objective, has to back off, eating too much damage, but Zen takes that opportunity and make sure that he focuses on Yorlak and even gets that kill at the end of the day. As it is 12% to 54, hard for Crescent to sort of make it back is the unfortunate part here, but beautiful shots from Nylan as he's going to be able to get the kill onto Zen. Maybe a little bit too over aggressive here. Cassie is brought really low. Same thing for the Ruckus as everyone turns back and deals with him. Beautiful, beautiful shots as well. 87% to 12 as the percentage is sort of gaining towards Crescent, but that won't be the case for much longer. At least that's what I would imagine, but it seems like they want to turn things around here. 36% to 87 with Crescent on the board.
You can see here the Zen is making it around to the kin, but they're all there to peel. They're all there to peel them off of this Kinessa, and that's what I thought the difference would be, the mobility and willingness to do that, actually move back and help them. And Cursed Arms coming in up front, but they lost one side of Washed Up already.
He dumps it onto the point, and some on the right-hand side of it. Manages to use the ultimate, but man, survives with 23 HP. That won't be for much longer as Kinessa does find the shot, but even still, Crescent in control of the objective here. Kinessa being the only one that found a kill on the side of Washed Up, and even finds the next one after that. So it might stall their push a little bit as they are looking for Corvus, and great shots from the kin.
Yeah, Pusik here up top. Definitely going to be hard to deal with as Half Shell gets brought down. No way for them to go through that for now, because again, if they shoot it, he'll have it back up quickly. Unless they can instantly kill him, you don't shoot it. Still though, Vinoroso manages to escape. The Inara chasing him down, but the flankers, the mobility, it's so big on this map, being able to go in and get above them and shoot down, and this mobility is also going to let Washed Up zone forward.
Seems like making it work for them, as that damage is coming in from Zen. A little bit harder to close this gap, of course, when you're getting pushed back by a team like Washed Up with that Genos buff. The hook goes out, manages to pull someone in on the side of Makoa, but it does at least force their positioning out of the mix here. They got Ringo in the back though somehow. They may have been a little bit too aggressive with how they were pushing it, because they lost their healer once again. That stalls out everything that they may have been looking for, as Yorlak takes the opportunity, moves to the back, but they at least take care of the Kinessa and of the Maeve. It's at least one kill on the side of Washed Up.
Nealon is spawn camping the Corvus. That's what's happening, by the way. Because he killed him again, and he's still there. And there's absolutely no heals. Finally, the Makoa comes back, but Makoa, probably the worst possible person to come back to stop this. I get that he can hook Andrew through the reversal, but now there's no one that can really cap the point other than this Ruckus. But they do finally get him, and now a long walk is in order for both of them. As Rango has to get the teleport over, and Hexafire kind of gets wasted into mines. I don't know why he's peeking, but
Yeah.
Theo Chillin gave it to him.
Yeah, that's that is a little bit rough for the Corvus. At least they are able to save him from his spawn, yelling as loud as he possibly can in comms. I'm sure get this Androxus off of him. That's definitely a situation you don't want to be stuck in. As he gets Void Grim, but Andro peeks right back around the corner, and Zen takes that in strides, just like he very much, and finds the kill. Now he's on top of the Genos, and pretty much spread out that damage very well between the Maeve and the healer. As now Inara has to back up. There's no DR remaining for her, and they're going to be able to get that kill. It puts them in a good spot. I'm surprised that them having no healer, with Ruckus being up that far and keeping that much space, they kept a lot of ground for that.
They did. They maintained it really well, and I like Kofigs. They're just kind of Tony Hawk 50-50 grinding on the top of that wall to make sure he could pick whatever side he wanted to go to. But now they're really hanging on by a thread here. Vinderoso is relying purely on his shield, but he actually manages to get healed up instead as well and washed up. This dive is a desperate defense.
Yeah, and they've been able to at least kill the healer, but they killed 3 in a flash, if anything, and tie this up 1-1. The peel for Ringo feels non-existent. He is 1-5. It's a rough game for a healer. He's got 12 assists. But I will say that they aren't really helping him out as much. I don't know. What do you do here to adapt, Chris? Do you just send more people off of the point, forego the point, make sure you're next to that Corvus up on the high ground since you got dove so effectively?
Maybe just having the Makoa play off point at the very start, give up like 30-40%, so you can have that hook to stop someone from diving onto Ringo, catching either the Maeve or the Androxus in midair. That's doable, but otherwise, I think maybe you just hold your Ruckus in the middle ground, right? When they dive you, you counter dive them. They have to find a way to make this Ruckus first pick work, though, because even though they traded the kill on Acoustic earlier last time in the Mattering, but actually it looks like Washed Up for the team that's going to play slow instead, and Kinessa gets away, and they might trade another kill with it on Bully.
They do. They get 2 off of the back end of that. I mean, sure, you may not have found the kills that you were looking. You may have saved your support, but at the cost of your life, I believe. I mean, they feel like the aggression was the answer there, but it did not work out as effectively as they may have hoped. Zanaris comes out from underneath the little bridge there and walks in, tries to hold the low ground, uses the accursed arm as 2 of them try and touch onto the objective. They use the ultimate. They do get the kill onto the healer, as Ruckus is the only one that's trade out. That's a great trade, but they even still find the kill on Ringo, making it even harder for anyone to sort of sit and rest on their laurels. They use the Ancient Rage to force the Inara off of the objective. They get the kill, and plenty more bodies pile up on the side of Washed Up.
They have a way to get back in, though. This midnight is going to be really important here. It was a great retake, though, by Crescent, having the Zin commit to get those kills. Ruckus dying for it, but again, that's kind of what you just expect with the Ruckus at this point. But this is the initiation they need. This midnight has to find something, but right now, just tripping out into his Zin up top, forcing health out, but they're the ones who lost the first.
But look at Inara. She's already really low, and they use the Hexafire as well, I guess, just to zone off whoever might be there. They find 2-3 kills. As the mid fight sort of winds down here, they even get the hook onto Maeve. They're making they know how to play this map. I will say that much. Crescent are definitely all for this map. Looking like an entirely different team now, that's for sure. It's based off of how last game Washed Up were able to reverse sweep them. They even get the kill on Androx as they find a beautiful positioning in mines.
Yeah, great spot here. Definitely go for the half shell, and this is a bold decision. Vineroso hitting towards their spawn and hooking them in, but he is very forward now, but it ends up working out. He lives because of the reload on Acoustic. Finally gets taken down, but this trade, it let the cart get up pretty far, Fawn.
It did, and Inara was at least there to be able to get that last hit. Otherwise, he actually would have made it out of that. When they tossed down the Kinessa mine to see if they could get the remaining little ticks of damage to see if they can kill Makoa, but if it wasn't for Inara, I really do think Makoa would have made it out of that one. Engaged in a battle is the Ruckus and Maeve. Ruckus seems to be winning that trade. The Kinessa in the back line is able to apply a lot more damage. They got rid of the Ruckus, but same thing can be said for the Maeve here. There's just a back and forth on both teams right now as Kinessa has to hop away from the incoming damage from Zen. Meanwhile, he has to position behind, so that way Androx doesn't kill him, but using the ultimate, and may have gotten a little bit too overzealous. Hook pulls him in. They want to take care of the Andro. Kinessa becomes a little bit more aggressive with everything, finds the shot, It makes it a lot more easier for Washed Up to sort of have a stronger defense.
Yeah, I think that hold there near the very end was solid. They're being able to collapse in, but in Crescent, actually, the way that they attacked them there, Washed Up, they don't spend a single thing, and Spite Entropic Breach was used there. They used the Scout a little bit before. They spent a lot with less than a minute remaining, more or less. They're not really getting a ton of ult charge here, and finally, Makoa might be making space. We'll see if they can make it in all the way with him, and looks like they are, but they're trying to play a little bit further back as Veneroso gets forced back on this Makoa as well.
Are finding the good picks. They even managed to get the Anara as Ruckus tries to escape Makoa on the objective. Trading things out 1-for-1 as they manage to catch the Kin from the teleporter. She was trying to make it back in the spawn, but that's going to put a damper on the success of Washed Up. But Crescent are going to take this one by storm, make it back to the objective, and find the picks that they needed to make this work for them. 3-1, but this is how it went last time. It did start off 3-1 towards the tail end. Can Crescent close this one out is the question.
We'll have to see what they're gonna do with the ultimates that they have. They're getting close to some of them, but they don't have a ton of impact ones. Really, it's just the tank ultimates, the Hexafire and the Ancient Rage. Washed Up have a little bit of everything, but I think here again, I want to say it comes down to the Midnight again, how far in they get with it, and there's not a lot of resilience on the side of Crescent, so they don't have a lot of ways to live through that, or that Seismic Crash. Actually, even at this 3-1, that Seismic Crash is still going to have a high level of impact if Gidette lets it happen. But again, the dive is where the eyes have to be here. Whatever team gets in further makes the biggest difference. But a Midnight comes out early, even if it's countered by a Scout. Washed Up, they just can't. Neither team can move anywhere.
No, they couldn't. Most of them playing by lava, but that Midnight deteriorates. You can bet that they are about to push in, make it hell for Washed Up. The Headhunter goes out. They found at least one of the shots to lower Zen enough to force him from that position. But even still, Washed Up have to make a way back, find some sort of way to make it back to the objective, and see if they can stop them from taking this point away from them. Seismic Crash drops it down. Ancient Rage to counter out the stun. Now Androxus, Canessa, they're back in a good enough spot. They find the shot and make sure they take care of Casper. However, they do trade things out with the Anara. They know that Zen is billowing, and he gets healed through the wall thanks to Corvus. But even still, I don't know if that's going to be relevant. He uses the Spite, tries to go in to see if he can stop the Canessa, but that may not be enough. Spins out of the Void Grip and finds the kill, exactly what he needed to make sure that this is way harder for Washed Up to keep control over this objective.
And this 2v1 constantly that they're doing with this Ruckus and Zin is what's really helping them here. Hexafire now above, stops Gidette from touching, and it's all in the DPS to get overtime.
Yeah, but even Canessa, she can't make it on. Too many people are already looking at her. Everyone's faltering and moving on to point one after the next, but they keep getting picked off one after one. That's going to be the first point, I believe. Are they all emoting? They were okay. I was about to say, I'm like, okay, well, oh no, they're gonna let that Androxus do that. Pretty BM, but that's okay because Crescent take the first map in this set and make sure they tie things up at a 1-1 score line against Washed Up.
Yeah, the way that their comp worked, I was a little bit concerned about them having the lack of verticality, but they just spent all their cooldowns to get into the back and then just juked the Canessa. They just made the Canessa miss. They played corners. The AoE of these Zin projectiles, the ones that can kind of hug around corners, helped a lot. Bully on that Zin put on a great performance, I think, here, using all that movement speed, the Blade Dance 5. A lot of extra mobility helped them cross that gap that they needed to get into that Canessa a little bit faster, even though I think that Canessa pretty well.
Yeah, 19-5 for Zen as well. I mean, we saw them a lot of the time putting on the pressure on a bunch of different targets. They had triple deeps. They had the means of stopping a lot of this aggression. And of course, it started off well for Washed Up. I mean, we saw the dive that happened all the way in the back. 100,000 damage for Canessa. But even still, the Zen actually doing a little bit less than the Cassie, which is interesting to say the least. It always felt like Zen was in the back with the CEO of Shaolin, with the Ruckus, to make sure that they put the pressure on the Canessa as much as possible, even if that meant death. And I guess that's just how Crescent wanted to handle it. I mean, Ringo was getting dove, spawn camped, the whole 9 yards, but they just countered it out by being just as aggressive as Washed Up wanted to be.
Yeah, I think you're surprised that the Xin did less damage than the Cassie, but I think that makes sense. The Xin was the one finishing the kills. Cassie was the one softening up the tanks basically the entire time. So it makes a lot of sense that she's the one that would end up just a little bit higher on those charts. But the fact that the way that Bully played, he was still that close, even mostly going into finish kills or fighting squishies is impressive. I think still a great performance from him on Xin and now Washed Up. If they want to get third place, if they want to get more crystals, if they want to get a good seeding, this next map is going to be the decider for them if they want to. Would you consider it an upset against them? I feel like we just don't see Washed Up enough to know, but I would say maybe an upset if they can finish this set against Crescent. Only one map stands between them, and I think we're ready to see picks and bans for it.
Let's head right into picks and bans for what is the final point of this set as we end things on Frog Isle here. Or the map where snipers can be prevalent, so maybe we see a little bit of the Kinessa once again. It seems like things are pretty even on most sides in terms of how the games have gone. We've seen a 4-3 on Jaguar Falls. We've seen a 4-1 thanks to Crescent last game. So I wonder how things are going to go this time around. It's been pretty close. It's just consistently throughout these matches.
Yeah, it's been close. I think this one will continue to be depending on how the ban goes. And Crescent ban Io, I think again not surprising that the second ban team going to get rid of her. Although on this map, now I'm definitely a little biased. Dredge is kind of nice on this map, and Dredge is kind of a really hard counter into Io. If she puts it on the point, just one broadside stops that from happening. Doesn't stop the 5-man zone, of course, with the Io being the 6th person, the Luna being 6th person capping the point. But I don't know. EU5 heads are the team that's going to do that for me. I know that admin has my back, but for now, I think they're not going to be comfortable playing into this IO for now. As a first pick, ROM is what Washed Up decided to go. Even with a Vivian on the other side, this Vivian will pretty much farm this ROM. If Crescent managed to get some CC too, that'll help. And this is one of Khan's better maps, so they're going to grab him as well.
ROM, Vivian, Khan, all the characters that are currently in the game. Of course, you have the off-tank presence from the ROM. Once again, the Genos. I wonder what the I mean. Okay, I understand it. It's a great healer. It's a great pick. That's exactly.
It's not with an Aura this time.
Right. True.
At least.
But also, right. But still, I mean, it's with the ROM though, right? I mean, it's even harder to try and heal him back up to where he needs to be. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know how I feel about the Genos pick once again. But ROM, Genos, Maeve, Vivian, and Khan on the other side.
Yeah, I'm fine with the Genos as long as it's not being immediately paired with the Inara like it was in all the other times. The Maeve will also be a great aggressive component of this comp to go in with that ROM as Inara Corvus is the response from Crescent. Inara pairs really well with Corvus, of course, but that healing is phenomenal. Having a wall to block off the sight line from any backlines that they end up getting. Kinessa, of course, will be the choice for them. See what they end up with here. A very aggressive comp, actually, from Washed Up. Ash and ROM going to go in, but how is the Kinessa going to see anything? How is the Kinessa going to have these sight lines?
Right, yeah.
They're going to be going in to deny all of the sight lines, and Kusik is going to be like, you guys,
right.
y'all good over there? You good? It says hoping that they win.
You're right, exactly, yeah. I mean, we've seen the sniper be picked in compositions like this where they have that heavy dive, even though the action is going to push extremely far forward. But this is a triple frontline composition with a Corvus and Vivian on the side of Crescent. I don't know, man. Let's head into Frog Isle and see how this matchup is going to be. We have seen how this has happened. We have seen the triple DPS, not triple DPS, excuse me, the triple frontline, and it has always fallen short of the damage department. I don't know how I feel about this on the side of Crescent.
The thing, I think triple tank is good on this map. I think triple tank, when you play it on this map, has to be triple dive tank. You literally have to int. That is how you win this
yeah,
map.
exactly, yeah.
They have two of the most passive tanks in the game. Khan is, I guess, okay, Khan's not the most passive, right? They have two very passive tanks. Inara Khan together used to be the kind of cornerstone of, my team is not moving. My team is sustaining, and we're going to outpoke you with our DPS. And Inara Khan are not really that aggressive, but the Ruckus is the only one that's going to be going in here. And look, he tries to win. Wait a minute, I'm alone. Oh, no. He runs away. And the Kinessa is still allowed to sit here for free.
Time to skedaddle, says the Ruckus as he tries to make his way out of the
Yeah.
fight. Doesn't want to stay in that any longer that he can help. But this is the problem. This is it. The Mave, the street justice. This is where triple frontline falls flat, and you pick that willingly into a Mave. It becomes a whole new level of problematic when you're playing into this, as it seems like Crescent have sort of struggled to find their place on the objective. They've gained some percentage for themselves, but Washed Up, they want a full send here. They want to move in, and it seems like it is working out for them very, very effectively, as they are already trapped in their spawn. Tries to use a Cataclysm, but not going to be able to find it.
I was just using it honestly just to show off that he had it. I mean, I would too. Even if it was awful, it's this early in the game, might as well go for it. But Washed Up, they literally just crushed them from the start. Really big separation on the side of Crescent right now. Washed Up and maintain this position up here as they actually managed to get a snipe onto that Ruckus trying to escape.
It seems like, of course, since they captured the objective, that means that Crescent have to get a zone, but that's hard to do when you're dying on the way into the zone. You can't quite find the mark that you're trying to hit if you can't deliver on the plan as effectively as you may want to. Shield goes up from Khan as he's slowly backing up, wants to try and regroup with his team, but he might get caught out here as there's a lot to worry about in Street Justice. Through the Khan shield, that is the problem. It goes through shields. Your health pool is what that Street Justice needs to find. And that's problematic. Oh my good, beautiful shot. Whoa, wait a minute. Sniper in the trees, the Rambo shots? The Rambo shots. We love to see those kind of shots. Manages to make the hit and find the kill. As a minute 30 still on the clock, the cart has not stopped rolling on right on in. It seems like Crescent have had a hard time trying to put their foot down against Washed Up.
It seems really difficult here. This Khan will sustain forever, but you need to do more than just sustain. You need to actually find a kill. And Nealon, hey, he'll do it for him here, and only this Ruckus can delay the point now.
Yeah, it seems like they're at least able to find two. So perfect, beautiful start as things actually go off for Crescent. They're finding kill, at least trading things out. They'll have their reinforcements back and waiting on the side of Crescent as opposed to Washed Up. But even still, it seems like they're having a really, really hard time fighting back even against this. They've been trying to see if they can find those kills, but they're still losing members. That's what I'm shocked about, if anything. Now Khan's really low as well. Mave's here. The whole team is ready to go. But even still, it's hard for them to fight into this. They're dying. They're losing the trades. Why? Because they don't have enough damage. That's my soapbox for today. We've seen triple frontline too much. They don't have enough damage. They can't make it work for them. I don't like triple frontline.
Here's the thing though. I think the damage is partially a problem. The real problem is the way that the triple tank comps work, right? When you have Ash, Makoa, Ruckus. Let's say you get the holy trinity of this dive. Rom now, I guess, instead of Makoa, but you send everyone in front of them. They have to burn through your health pools. Your combined damage from your 3 tanks on one target, if they're not able to focus one of you at a time, will outpace it. The problem is, Ruckus goes in, and then you hear the tuba music, bum da 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 da, as the Nora and the Khan are trying to follow up. They just can't.
Right.
Time,
Just can't.
and they're not going to collapse on the same target fast enough.
Seems like Rom wants to move into the back off of this midnight. Kong is pretty low, going to get dashed into. There's the execute as now Vivian notices the Mave and obviously wants that kill. But Anara's running down Genos just to be able to sort of find some sort of kill here, right? No way. Okay, they do actually end up getting the kill. That was going to be pretty wild if they weren't able to find that one. Okay, Crescent. Now they're making sure that they turn up the heat a little bit in the kitchen as they found 3 kills of their own. Mave trying to escape, uses the pounce, or uses the reset, excuse me, to heal herself even for a little bit as they are pushing forward now. Comeback mechanic is pretty huge. Assert dominance to see if they can keep themselves alive and land on the objective, or at least close enough to it. And even still, it's not going to be enough. Kanessa with the shots. You got to be careful with where you're peeking. Jump shot immediately into Rango. That's going to be a good look. Finds another kill as well. They've traded things out to work for the better on the side of Washed Up as they want to move into the back. Run right onto the Vivian looking for the kill. They find her. And now Anara's the lone wolf on point. Earthen Guard, no more. No more DR and no more Anara. As Washed Up want to push Crescent way back towards their spawn.
Can't believe Gadet lives through that entire thing, but Washed Up. They don't want to push up before their healer gets there. Now that Happy's there, they will be willing to move up and actually use a Cataclysm in the backline. Not sure what they found, but The other lane, Knessa holding it single-handedly, forces back that Ruckus.
And actually forcing back the Corvus as well. They usually assert dominance, but maybe that may have not been the good positioning. They know that Corvus is over there. They just don't know where he quite is exactly. Seismic crash. Was that a direct hit seismic crash onto the Maeve? Okay, right, okay. That's exactly what I thought it was. I'm like, there's no way. I have not seen that happen before. Not saying it can't, but the chances of that happening are very unlikely. Ruckus tries to move to the point and gets Void Grip. They use Headhunter. They're willing to burn the ultimate just to make sure they get this third point on the board for Washed Up, and they do find the kill.
No reason not to spend it, I think. Just keep the snowball up, right? Just stay aggressive, stay in their face. Nealon catches Casper on this Inara. This Street Justice Delete is doing so much work for them right now, especially into this triple tank. But look at this. He's just making so much room on this ROM. It is just unreal. And this Ruckus, a little bit fast, can't continue this pressure.
It's hard for them to quite find a sort of breather here on the side of Crescent. As they are making their way back, they forced them out of their more comfortable positions on the side of Washed Up. But look at where they're already back. They're back in the fray. They're back at it. And they actually missed a couple daggers that would have ended up killing Vivian, but even still, that means that Crescent are now in control here. The minute that Vivian peaks, she gets sniped by the Knessa, and that puts a little bit of a damper on their forces. But the highlight here is the triple front line. That's definitely what they want to be able to have, as they're finding good shots onto the Inara as well.
Yeah, and this Midnight, it will let them they were getting pushed back a little bit, but the Midnight opens up a lot of ground for them, and Casper doesn't know where his team is actually, gets kind of isolated, pushed back as this ROM continues to just run through them. This duo has been dominating.
The linebacker runs right on through, gets a Cataclysm on the way into the spawn, but they were considered in the spawn doors, so they weren't going to be able to get that kill. But beautiful cleanup so far on the way in. There hasn't really been a stop for this ROM at all. Khan's really the only one that can do that by forcing out his commander's grab, seeing if he can grab that ROM as soon as he's about to sprint, but it's creating enough space for Knessa to feel like she can just do anything. She can tackle the world, and we see that applying so well because of how much space is being gained. Knessa has not felt a single weight of pressure on her shoulders at all. She's been just sitting back there free firing, and everyone else, of course, pushing them away from the objective by force. And it means that now Corvus can't really contest, and that might actually be all she wrote. Ruckus is going to be able to touch, but for how much longer? The answer is not much. As Washed Up make this one a 2-1 against Crescent. A very, very good draft, honestly. I think it was. I think they had a good draft to begin with on the side of Washed Up, and Crescent just struggled to sort of find their way through with the draft that they had.
I think that Ruckus pick really was what did it for them, because they had a potential for a great passive composition. They had Inara, Khan, they had Vivian. I think what you do there to end that draft is something that also in a backline or maybe a secondary healer. My thoughts went to Grover. Maybe you have the roots for the dive when they get in. You have the ultimate to heal your team when that dive comes in. You just have a lot of answers potentially, but just saying, all right, the Ruckus feels so slapped on. It was like someone saying, oh, wow, aren't we banning Ruckus in this region? I guess we should probably last pick it if it's still open, right? It just seems so shoehorned into this composition that looked like it could have been this great passive anti-dive peel kind of composition.
I mean, 9-2-20 for the Knessa, 17-4 for the Maeve. I mean, this is the Maeve ROM. No disrespect to the Knessa, the Maeve ROM definitely were the leaders here. They forced so much onto Crescent, and it was so hard for them to respond because what did ROM do? He ran straight on through him, like I mentioned before. Khan's really the only one that can stop that ROM, and when you have a ROM freely running through, that means that Maeve is obviously going to follow up. 88k for her, 106,000 for the Knessa. I mean, a very powerful duo, ROM and Maeve, clearly being the stars of the show and clearly just easily cleaning up the members of Crescent.
Yeah, we can see here how little pressure. You're talking about how little pressure that Knessa took? She took 15,000 damage the whole game.
Right.
That was only 2,000 more than a Genos. Genos doesn't even have to see the game to play it. He can heal 2 balls. And yet Knessa only took 2k between them. So you can tell just absolutely no pressure came in. That Ruckus literally unable to do anything on that. And that's partially what pushes Washed up to this third place, getting some more crystals and some more points for seeding.
That was the EU Bronze match coming at you on the Paladin Central Minor League. We'll have more games for you right after this break.
We brought the sound that shook the ground. There is a meaning buried within the sound. We brought the sound that shook the ground. There is a meaning. We brought the sound.
welcome back into the Paladin Central Minor League. We just got done watching the EU Bronze match with Crescent versus Washed Up. But now we're here in the EU Finals. Loading Vendors versus EU Five Heads is the teams that we're going to be watching play for this week's win in the Paladin Central Minor League.
And for those of you wondering, there actually has been a roster change to Loading Vendors, the team that everyone has all their eyes on. More or less, Simsaloo is actually out. He replaced K Cruncy on Clown Fiesta for this coming week of the PPC. So there's going to be, they need to pick up somebody else, and I might be wrong about this, but looking at this roster and from what I remember, I believe I can't use his name in any nickname form just because of it.
You can't.
I think Spunky is in and playing this week.
Yep.
So Spunky will be coming back in from a long break after, I think he was on 5 randoms in the qualifiers before he decided to stop playing, but he's back with Loading Vendors and helping them win against potentially EU 5 heads, because EU 5 heads, they struggled against Loading Vendors last week, but with this roster change, maybe EU 5 heads could have a better chance if Spunky's not really kind of caught up to things yet.
Well, I mean, that's a name that if anyone was watching the Paladins esports scene last year, that you know very, very well. I'm so excited to get into it. We have to head into the picks and bans. I want to see what these guys draft for us this match, as this Jaguar Falls will be the first map that we head to, just like last set, but once again, a return to standard. It's very, very normal to see Jaguar Falls being the first map.
Okay, Spunky is here, but actually, even though G-Bunny and Cuss would normally play, they are not here, it looks like. So the roster for Loading Vendors for today is Spunky, King Nick, Kartoffeltort, Zarini, and Mutu. Will be the 5 that they bring to the table, but we'll see here. Zin is the first ban. Guillotine, very important on this map. Also, being able to kind of kite around corners makes things a little bit difficult as well. But we'll see this. Genos also banned for... So it went through all the last 3 games, but EU5 heads just don't want to play against it.
Alrighty, you have the Zen, Vivian, Genos. Get them out of here. Don't want them in my game. Don't want them to stay there at all. And of course, this is what we would expect to see in the ban column. But I was just about to mention, I'm like, wait, if they get rid of the Genos, does that mean they get rid of the Corvus as well? Or will it be the IO and EU5 heads? They feel more comfortable banning out that IO more than anything else. Of course, I mean,
Torvald,
very strong, very strong character. And you're right, Torvald is open. Same thing can be said for the Makoa and the Corvus. And it seems like Makoa is going to be the first pick on the side of Loading Vendors. Make complete sense. Very strong character.
Is this where the Torvis comes through? Is this what I'm expecting here to see that coming up next? This Koa, I think it is a solid pick for first on Jaguar Falls. In particular, the fact that you can drop a shield and a choke point make it almost unpushable if you're good enough. But Corvus will be what gets through. With those other 2 supports banned, Corvus is definitely right next on the totem pole. And hey, it is the Torvis. That is the combo they want. So whatever DPS they get after this is going to be crazy amplified from this point forward.
Yeah, having double pocket is not something to scoff at. An extra 1,000 health, and then of course the endless sustain that Corvus seems to provide is definitely something I would be concerned about. But Makoa and Rom are going to be on the side of Loading Vendors. You have the Androxus as their first DPS locked in, but it's extremely dive heavy, is what Loading Vendors is showing off right now, which means that it could be a bit of a problem for them, provided on the side of EU5 hits if they don't have good enough DPS at their back. You have the Inara, and I wonder, is this a time for Shaolin? Do you feel the Shaolin coming out here?
Possibly. They're going to go with the Cassie instead, because Cassie kind of just owns Makoa and Rom with big game in particular. They're both very high health pool tanks, so you can do a lot of percentage damage very quickly and kind of help your team with that. But EU5 heads have a very stationary comp right now. They're not going anywhere. And honestly, Loading Vendors, we could see a repeat of what we saw before. I would have loved to have actually seen a Grok here to play and bounce off of that Inara and that Torv, but Maeve threw instead. Maybe it'll be Street Justice to pierce those Torvald bubbles. More realistically, it'll be Cat Burglar to get some poke and win some duels. And Midnight will let them get aggressive, but Lex will have those wall hacks and the reveals to see through the Midnight when they get close enough.
Yeah, it seems like on both sides that these drafts are pretty legit, honestly. I mean, you have the dive composition on the side of Loading Vendors, big health pools you have to burn through, and high octane damage on the side of Loading Vendors. But when you 5 heads, you've got a double pocket. Hard to argue that that's something that Loading Vendors will have an easy time trying to break up. especially considering the fact that Lex is in the pool here on Jaguar
Yeah.
Alpha Falls. We'll have to head right into game and see how both of these drafts are going to play out. Because I think this is very, very interesting to see this Lex once again. Do you feel like he's only viable in a situation where he has a pocket? That seems to almost be the only time we ever see him.
I think he is viable without one, but I think when you pair Corvus and Torvald and Lex together,
Mhm.
definitely can help quite a bit. But I don't know how I feel about Lex here. I do like the execute into the ROM. I think that helps. I also think that Lex can farm off the ROM, but I don't know if I love his matchup into the other side of things. I feel like Andro has a chance to win out against him. And I think Maeve can kind of just run away. We'll see exactly how this Lex gets played, but the rest of the comp can't really get aggressive with him. It's kind of just this Lex, who I'm assuming is piloted by Vixar, going as aggressive as possible, but getting stalled out potentially. But early, look at this burn on this Inara on point. King Nick is just shredding.
But look at everybody else. They're the ones playing by secret. It seems like Kartoffeltorp might have been in a bad spot as him and Zerini go down. Mutu does at least find one kill, but even still, facing this double pocket, very, very hard to try and fight back against Spunky. He has to try and find some sort of way out, but he gets blown up. And it's really, really unfortunate to see this happen already, as they are playing very, very aggressively. Trying to see if he can slide out, puts up the wall from the Yanar to see if they can peel a little bit better. That's not going to be the case. They already have plenty of opportunities to touch on the point on the side of loading vendors. Really are just waiting, biding their time. Gets the silence onto the Makoa, but may have spent a little bit too much time doing that, and therefore is going to get punished respectively and lose his life. 3 kills on the board for loading vendors, as the U5 heads were in control, but it seems to be taken away from them at the last second.
A lot of quick burst damage there into admin to take him down. So now no heals for U5 heads to actually make their way through here. But look at this ROM. Zerini is just stalling. Their entire team is walking into the only choke point being held by a tank. They're letting Zerini just manhandle them here, and even though he falls, it's going to guarantee them this first point capture.
Yeah, great. You were able to get the kill on the front liner, but let's all walk into the dismounting ROM, if anything, with that Gatling gun. Definitely not the best look that you want to have. They are at least able to capture the point, but they lose 2 in the mix, and even lose a 3rd one, as they're trying to play on the retreat here. Snakebite gets tossed out, manages to stun Vixar as they use the Midnight. This is what they want to force things with, but even still, it's not going to be enough. Finding the good shots as well to see if they can try and stop him. A Cursed Arm knows they're around here somewhere, looking at the Lex, knows he's around the corner. Not the Lex, excuse me, the Cassie knows that he's there. He manages to get the shot as well. Doesn't find the finishing blow. Kartoffeltorp's going to be the one that does that. Seismic Crash immediately finds the stun, and it seems like loading vendors have turned this fight around when EU5 heads were trying to regain control.
Look, it's a perfect turn on. I can't believe that knock-up during that fear was as perfect as it was. Literally, King Nick was just sitting there, empty plate in front of him, fork and knife in hand, and then a Lex and a Cassie were delivered to him while hard CC. He ended up doing a ton to them and helping them finish off those kills, but now EU5 heads trying to push their way out of their spawn. This card still has a long way to go, and they're actually using this Cataclysm to knock down the wall.
Dashes in, tries to see if they can find the daggers, but of course decides to leave soon after that. Yoinko is going to back up. You have 1 minute and 5 seconds on the clock. Vixar, he needs to find some sort of way to move out as he gets bubbled. And now you have 1 minute still remaining as Mutu has to find a way to escape here. Ancient Rage immediately being used, tries to see if they can stop the Inara. Gets the hook and manages to find the kill. And all it does is cement loading vendors in this push here, as now Passiwo goes down immediately after that. Hard for them to fight into loading vendors composition right now. They are showing that by really just keeping him in their spawn. The minute he pushed out, he gets picked off. Vixar done, and just like the round, loading vendors with a 2-0 lead over EU5 heads.
This ROM is doing a ton into them here. This Zerini is just basically unstoppable, and loading vendors, they did spend that Ancient Rage to confirm that. EU5 heads will have quite a few ultimates on their side, but loading vendors can again just get aggressive off of a Midnight. Mutu is undying right now. Really, really hard for them to stop on this Maeve. I think winning duels into Vixar, even with these pockets, is a pretty big deal. If you can stop the main target of the pockets, the one who needs them. Yes, they can pocket the Cassie instead, but when you can put a bubble and a Corvus mark on someone who's already doing 30% more damage a lot of the time, you're going to get a little bit more mileage out of it. But they can stop Vixar, they can make things a lot harder for them here in particular. But we'll see how they play it. If they play slow, Zarini already stopping them in dark, just going for dismounts, and it looks like Loading Vendors just want to wait for their time to strike.
So try and find a way in. The wall is up. Of course, he's just seeing if anyone tries to peek out, but they're going to opt to not do that. He's going to be the aggressor here. A Cursed Arm finish off Yoinko. The Anar does go down. So EU5 heads are trying to hold on as best as they can. Loading Vendors still in what seems to be almost infinite control over the objective. Not a single foot has been able to touch onto that point on the side of the EU5 heads. And they're trying to change that now by sitting in the Anar. They even use the Dread Serpent to see if they can make it a little bit easier for them to make it on there. They have their first percentages on the point, but they lose Torvald on the way in. The Dread Serpent was supposed to make things work out for him, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. Entropic Breach, the whole 9 yards, different ultimates are being used, but when it comes out on top, is going to be Loading Vendors. They're the ones that make this a 3-0 so far.
E5 heads just never really get in. I feel like Loading Vendors just managed to control the objective the entire time. And I'd love to see a Hyper Beam here maybe. If Passimo gets out far enough to catch them, look at where they're positioned. They could go for some kills, but this Torvald is just going to hold on to the ult till maybe map 2 at this rate, honestly, here as Mutu and King Nick continue to put on the pressure. Both of them staying safe and a lot of damage getting put into EU5 heads in their attempt to get out.
2 minutes up on the clock, as it already seems like EU5 heads have to find some sort of way past the seemingly almost flawless defense on the side of Loading Vendors. They've been able to find the kills. They can do it. I know that they can, but even still, it seems like it's almost nigh impossible for them to do so, especially with the positioning they have and the characters, the whole edge, everything on the side of Loading Vendors. 2 kills already prevalent for them, and that's probably all she wrote for this map. As they use what they can, they use the turbo ult as well, but they even get the kill on him. So many members fall down. Loading Vendors make that first win in their favor.
Honestly, I'm just happy Passimo pressed D.
Yeah, same.
That's my personal win of that game, was the Torvald being able to ult it and send them out. Of course, nothing was able to come from it. Of course, he was the last one alive, but very, very difficult to actually turn that around. The comp that came up from Loading Vendors was just really overwhelming. Even with Torv and Corvus on their team, they had to deal with that Makoa buying a ton of space. The flankers, on the side of Loading Vendors also made things, I would say, fairly difficult for them. King Nick and Mutu, a combined 19-2. I would consider that to be a overwhelming success for them, as Vixar, this Alex, was the only one on their team to get more than 1 kill. The last pick, too, really coming in clutch, but definitely not enough to turn the tide.
Definitely not. To see that King Nick was 11-1, only dying 1 time. A few members on their team actually, Spunky, King Nick, Mutu, only dying once. And Kartoffel, Torb, and Zarini leading the charge there by only dying twice. Beautiful assist line on the side of Zarini, just making sure that he had those dismounts, he had damage spread out between so many different members on the side of EU5 heads. And of course, that played a very huge role into how they were able to take that win by storm. Made it work out so much better for them. And EU5 heads, I mean, they had the double pocket. It seemed like it would have been enough to cause them to at least get a point, a win, anything. But I don't know. I guess it was just a little bit too much for them to deal with on the side of the opposing team, Loading Vendors.
Look how much damage that admin was able to that Demo Heart was able to do, and I'm assuming that was all into Zarini, probably, because look at the damage that Zarini ended up soaking, 80,000. For him, Demo did a lot, but couldn't kill anybody. Zarini was just playing so safe, was able to run away to Spunky anytime he actually needed help. Definitely helped quite a bit. As Mutu in chat says, let's go, Oding Vendors. Definitely hyper. His team is probably frantically setting up a bounding box. Now, in the meantime, map number 2, whatever we end up going to, I believe it will be EU5 heads pick here. And if Jag was not going to be successful for them, it looks like Ice Mines is going to be where they want to go. You can definitely draft differently, but it is still a flat map, and a lot of the same champions can still work.
Yeah, it seems like that they could luck in those same ones, just like you were mentioning previously. Let's head into picks and bans and see if that's going to end up being the case. Maybe we'll see another Tiger once again. I mean, we might see it today, twice in EU region. We have talked about how Tiberius is very well played on Ice Mines. And it's a matter of if they want to, of course, continue going for that. or if they'd rather just chill and pick someone else. I can imagine the bans would definitely be most of the same, though.
More than likely. Although, I think some teams might let Io through on this map, actually. I think some teams are willing to do it because the fights are so close, but EU5 heads... They had Corvus last time, they're like, just get rid of it. I don't even care.
Right,
Just
yeah.
no. Out of my
That's true.
face. I don't want to see it anymore. Torvald is gone. Makoa banned in response by loading vendors. Makoa clearly first pickable if the second pick are the ones that need to get rid of it. Picks remaining here. It will actually be Willow, surprisingly enough. We've seen loading vendors use Willow to strong effect, and this is one of her better maps. So you'll get rid of that. I maybe would, with Makoa banned, I was going to say, I think Terminus makes sense here, but all the supports now are getting through. Time to see if exactly which one they're going to go to. Io could make sense here, but that does open themselves up to a Dredge counter potentially, as this is one of Dredge's best maps too.
Torvald, Willow, Makoa, Terminus out of the mix, but Zen is going to be the first one locked in here since he's no longer in the ban column. Makes it pretty interesting to see this flank really be present, really being prioritized here, as typically we see the Andro first, but the Genos, the Corvus, everything is already open, so we have plenty of people to get picked up here. And Io actually got let through as well. I think that's important to mention.
Yeah.
She's not in the ban column. They could pick her if they want to on Ice Mines.
And again, I wouldn't be shocked to see it, but it does get countered a bit by some of the more common picks. Dredge in particular, as I mentioned before. Dredge also, without Terminus there, would help significantly, I think, against them. But I want to see, I think, one of the Genos and Corvus going here for them. Maybe Rom actually is the first pick. It did a lot for them last time, so it makes sense why they would go that direction again. And they're going to pick up the Nando. So Nando, oh my god! Nando makes with that ultimate. I'm sorry, I've been swallowed by the void. Nando's ultimate is fantastic on this map. Any ult that can stop you from dying or let you get super aggressive, I think it is fantastic to play off of.
Yeah, I think that's the case too. It seems like you have a very strong frontline composition to sort of make things work out for you. And of course, Io is going to be locked in the minute. The game that she's not banned is the game that you will see teams more than likely pick her up. And you already have the Zen, the Inara, the Genos on one side. You got the Rom Fernando Io on the other. They really don't even need a point taking when you have the Luna. What is it, Chris?
Dredge.
Tell us.
It's got to be Dredge. It
Okay.
has to be Dredge. I would be shocked if it wasn't at this point. I think he's fantastic. Into this, you just get like Bulldozer 2 and your broadside will instantly delete IO. It makes a lot of sense. Plus the self-sustain, if you run Hurl with it, also helps a lot. You can even run Abyss Spike here into it. I think Abyss Spike actually better than Scuttle, by the way. Chat, feel free to flame me for that, but I think Abyss Spike it genuinely has way more benefits than Scuttle these days. It would just make a lot of sense to see that picked up here for me. But it could also be, if they want another tank, it would have to be someone a little sustaining. I think Khan can work here quite well as well. Being able to stop the Nando, stop the Rom Khan Dredge would be a great end to this draft because it's impactful ultimates and crazy impactful damage.
Yeah, it seems like so far you have a pretty set up composition on the side of it. Hey,
Okay.
there it is. It is indeed the Dredge is what EU5 heads are going to pick here. Zen, Inara, Genos, Dredge, Khan. That's their locked in.
I swear I didn't know. Just saying. I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I really didn't.
Like
I really didn't. Bro, I was setting up for the PPC when these games were being played, okay? You think I have time to see what's going on? I got no idea. You were with me. What do you mean? You know I didn't know. Jurgos is going to close things out. Combustible will knock them around and make it a little bit harder for that Khan to stay aggressive.
Yeah, the Jorgos, a character that we haven't seen quite as much, and typically not prioritized over the Bomb King, but this time they feel like it might be a little bit necessary. I can personally understand that. I mean, I think the Combustible plays a huge role into that Dredge. Don't have to put yourself in the line of sight or line of danger against them. EU5 heads, loading vendors. Will they close this one out, or EU5 heads tie this up? Let's head in the game and find out as we head into Ice Mines. Interesting that I'm glad I actually brought up the Jorgos thing, because I haven't seen Jorgos in such a long time over the BK. Genuinely.
We saw Jorgos recently in the PPC, actually. Pickled Pepper pulled it out on Ascension Peak to play as like kind of a hybrid sniper. It was it actually performed really well, honestly, for them, even if they had really close games when they managed to pick it up. But looking at this composition, you see the Storm Bullets, Mother's Grace. Nothing really shocking, although I noticed that the Hurl picture seems to be wrong. That is, I think that's the Abyss Spike photo that they have there. But Combustible, I think, was the only one that was really up for debate. All three talents on Drogo's are playable, but I think having the knockback helps significantly here. And when I was talking about that hard counter, there you go. Boom. Luna is dead. This is why you pick Dredge on Ice Mines.
It seems like it's working out well for them so far. They're tossing out spear after spear, trying to find the finishing marks onto those targets. They're eating a lot of damage on the side of loading vendors. Hard to sort of play into that, especially on the opposite side. But it seems like EU5 heads, they're the ones sitting pretty right now, tossing out the grenades every now and again, as they are trying to keep each other alive on the side of loading vendors, excuse me, as it seems like they've been holding in Barn for quite some time. They actually haven't gone down. It seems like Fernando and Rom I saw them on low HP for so long, and that's first blood. That's crazy to me that no one ended up dead, especially in Barn. They were able to hold that down. That's the type of caliber of players that you expect to see here, and a beautiful combustible shot as well.
Yeah, and Mutu on the Zorgos already has ultimate charged, actually. He's going to go in and just execute this con. Maybe not the best choice here, but this knockback is sending him all around.
Seems like for the most part that Yoinko is trying to see if he can escape from the impending damage on the side of loading vendors, but nah, you're just going to get taken out of the fight in that one, which is a good look for them. As Rom charges right on in, Zarini in a better position. Very, very good here. So he gets tossed out, but they might set up for a Cataclysm. Exactly what I was expecting. The time and space as well. Hits the IO in the back, but they actually managed to kill Vixar thanks to the IO ultimate. I mean, they trade things out one for one. They may not have a healer anymore, but there's a very, very interesting interaction there.
Yeah, and actually, I wanted to... Edmund actually posted in chat and let me know he's actually running the wrong build on Dredge right now. So if we can see that build really quick, I just want to make a comment on it. No healing on Harpoon and no ammo on Harpoon for the Dredge here as an apparently accidental misclick. So that actually really hurts his sustain here on that Dredge. Things definitely a lot harder for him to actually counter this poke. And to play this Dredge, they also had to shift their roster around as well because their support is their best one. So they moved their hit scan to tank and they moved their off tank to the DPS as well, I believe. But King Nick pulled in, might help U5 head stabilize.
They have to play tower defense at this point with how much time is remaining for loading vendors to push this one in. It might take them a little bit longer, but they are able to at least take out the Dredge. But Zen's in the back, has to billow out. He only has 38 HP, but the fireball is going to be enough to find that kill. Meanwhile, the Genos is brought extremely low thanks to a very well-placed combustible shot with 50 seconds up on the board here and remaining for loading vendors. It's hard for Inara to sit where she is, especially considering the fact that that she has to hold on for dear life here. Loading vendors are taking control over high ground, do the best they can, but the combustible shots are displacing them a lot. It get hard for them to really do much of anything.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest reasons why Drogoz used to be a really common pick on this map, and I think it makes sense to see him coming back here. That AoE displacement, the resets on it, and of just being able to do it without peeking a corner helps a lot here, but the Be Gone from Spunky actually doesn't connect. It gets locked out at the top, and Dredge finds 2 to start.
Good combustible shot though. Counter is down, same for the Billow. Try to see if he can find the hit, but doesn't quite find it. They're gonna have to hold on to their ultimates this go around because EU5 heads have just defended against loading vendors. They don't have the Cataclysm, they don't have the Be Gone on the side of IO. Fernando only has 82% on his ultimate. That Immortal can be huge, especially if used correctly. And there is the Dredge build, so I'm gonna give you time to talk about it.
Well, normally on Hurl, you would want to have things that play around your Harpoon a little bit more. This seems like a Harpoon cool. This is like a Scuttle build, I would say, more than anything. There's no cooldown on Harpoon, so that means it's not a Abyss Spike. And there is, I mean, mobility not related to the teleporter. Normally on Harpoon, on Hurl, you want to run Mortal Skewer 5, which gives you a lot more healing when you hit people. One of the main reasons you run Hurl is that insane sustain you get, getting 400 health per hit. And also, no ammo back on hitting a Harpoon either, so he doesn't have that infinite ammo benefit that you also tend to get from running it. So definitely a little bit harder for admin, but the frags he's getting seem to be helpful for now, just not able to keep himself in the fight and contest this Drogoz as long as he wants to.
Seems like for right now, They are firing around the corner. Seismic crash into through time and space combo. The stun cementing 2 kills already for EU5 heads in the very first few seconds of this next mid-fight. This is the zone that they want. They will take it in kind and force loading vendors all the way back to spawn. A couple of them, and the ones remaining can't push past, and they want to use the Dragon Punch. They're trying to see if they can find a pick here. He's moving in, trying to close the gap. Not going to quite find it. Dredge is all the way in the back, trying to see if he can stop that Vivian, but don't know if he really can. Drogos does know he's back there, but the hurdle is going to be enough, and they do find that kill. Overpower immediately onto Rom as well. He's trying to body block. He has to use the Immortal and manages to toss him off the side because Fernando had to move out of the way. He tried to use himself to block the Rom, if anything, but even still, it's not enough. Loading vendors are really falling one by one. Not many defense, not much gas left in the tank on the side of red, as they do touch for overtime, but that's all she wrote for this round, because that means the U5 heads have captured this point and now are on the offensive.
I mean, I don't know how you lose a mid when you start it the way that EU5 heads managed to do. Seismic crash into a Kraken and a time and space all on 2 people. Basically localized it. One center of Ice Mines definitely helps a bit here as they force out the Begone and get the kill on Spunky anyway. Spunky's survival Begones are really not hitting the way that they should be. Guillotine even helps EU5 heads continue this snowball.
Seems like right now that Zen is in pretty good control of his perspective, or of his positioning, excuse me. As he is trying to shoot around the corner. See if you can find any sort of mark into him. Doesn't seem like it's gonna be much. Through time and space once again. Yeah, they gotta move. They're definitely gonna move out of the way of this one. This time they have a choice. This time they have a choice to actually move out of the way. As they manages to use the Dragon Punch into Dredge, just at least one down, and that puts a damper on their numbers here. As EU5 heads really just trying to roll the cart right on forward. As now, of course, the remaining members of the blue team have to back up, but Rom doesn't want to give him a break. He moves in onto the con, puts up the shield as they fire into it, but it's broken just as quickly as he put it up, trying to block and counter combustible shot, as they do manage to take out Vixar on the way out. It's really Fernando's keeping his shield up, trying to stop people from moving right on in, and holding his ground against multiple targets on the side of EU5 heads. Plenty of shots from Vivian. Ah, yes, Vivian gameplay. We saw her right mouse sometimes and left click most of the time as Zarini goes down and EU5 heads can make their way back to the cart.
Yeah, I like how they managed to hold back, just having the Dredge locking down that long sightline, plus the Zin being the one to bait with that sustain helps quite a bit as this aggression just continues to be stalled by EU5 heads now that they make it around to this first corner. A Kraken actually doesn't end up capturing anyone, but it makes Kartoffel take more damage than he was probably comfortable with. With 30 seconds left, this isn't impossible, but it will be difficult, I think, with a Vivian standing between them and a capture.
Yeah, Rom trying to see if he can force anything or just hold on as best as he can. They even kill Mutu on the way down. There's a Dredge just firing into that Fernando shield. It's going to go down, and when it does, Fernando's in for a whole lot of hurt. As so is, I guess, Anar was too, as they end up getting killed. Now, of course, Vixar has to sort of back off here, try to see if he can find the hit. Doesn't quite find it, but he is at least able to displace them for the most part. 5 seconds remaining, as really EU5 heads don't have any sort of way to make it back to the car or cause an overtime touch, and that's going to be all she wrote for now.
They had the backdoor portal, but everyone on loading vendors was watching it. There was no way he was going to be able to slip past and get that back cap, so EU5 heads had to settle in for this next mid-fight with a lot of ultimates, and they really have some impact ones, I think. Having this overpower, having the seismic crash, time and space, they have things to combo with their CC, they have 2 executes, and then a couple things that can also execute if set up properly. So I gotta say, I do love their ultimate composition here, but that puts a lot of pressure on Kartoffel toward it. Depending on how he uses this Immortal, he can hard counter any level of engagement by EU5 heads. I thought the way he used it on the last mid was fantastic. He saved the ROM for a little bit longer, gave his team a chance, even if they weren't able to capitalize on it. I'd love to see something maybe on that same level here, but Loading Vendors looks like they're going to have an even start to this fight, but they let the con get all the way over to this stage, and that could be an immediate ultimate if they go for it.
Got the Dragon Punch as well, as they managed to at least get the overpower on one of them. Try to see if he can find. Vixar does find it, but they lost 2 members on the time it took for him to actually use that Dragon Punch. He has to back up, doesn't want to fight into that Dredge hurl. or any of the grenades to ground it for Drogos. As the U5 heads are trying to fight back against the Drogue right now and the remaining members of Loading Vendors. But there's a lot of damage they have to deal with. As a Combustible does manage to find at least one hit. They are grouped up to the right-hand side of that. They use the seismic crash. They find the stun. All they need to do is stall. That's all they want to do. They want to keep from making it back to the point. They're so low, and they manage to get the kills onto them. The Kraken ends up getting used as well. But even still, they have to make it back to the point. And Fernando does make it back there. Torp is alive. Zerini goes down, but at the same time, Zen's in the back, getting killed off by King Nick. Be gone off the side. Casted into the realm of
What?
Casted into the...
Kill him! Come on, man!
Casted
Oh,
into
that's
the
be
realm.
okay. Okay, come on. They gotta kill him. That's so rude. That's actually so rude that they're not killing him right now. You see that he's stuck in the geometry. Just take 2 seconds to kill him. He's not gonna be able to respawn now. That's actually really annoying that I'm watching this right now. Okay, Mutu, the good guy. Apparently King Nick is not, as they do get this kill finally. And set up for this ult to maybe come back in and resettle this fight.
Yeah, it seems like for right now, they are at least able to get the kill on him. And at the same time, they are blowing up whoever else tries to make it onto the cart. Very effective stat. That's the first time I've seen that IO ultimate work that way. But hey, I mean, if it works, it works. And at least they were nice enough to at least give him the kill.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't actually move off of that. Very interesting to see that. I've never seen that one before. I didn't even know that was a thing, but it does work out through time and space. Up on the high ground, not going to quite find the kill either. So going to try and push them time and time out of the fray. Immortal on Fernando. Beautiful recognition on the Zen using Spite. Manages to pop the ult as well as that's happening. And they're not going to be able to get the kill quite yet. Runs right into Zen. And they do find that kill. Zerini, a nice double on his behalf.
Yeah, they keep up this aggression. I mean, seeing the Immortal to counter the Guillotine, that's exactly the kind of time you have to use it, right? To counter that here. But this card's been rolling in all the way, by the way. We haven't even commented. It's so close, and Vixar falls.
Okay, Loading Vendors. They take it 2-0. That's the EU Finals. A very, very interesting one at that. That definitely saw something we haven't seen before, but even still, it's a great look for Loading Vendors, but you have a lot of those veteran names on that team. Not gonna say that it's unfair, but it's definitely something that you have to keep in mind, that you're fighting up against the best of the best on the side of Loading Vendors. Definitely very scary to play into. How do you feel like the IO sort of did that time around? I mean, we don't get a chance to talk about her because we have this sort of pocket meta going on right now. The Corvus, the Genos, the Torvald, 3 supports that always have a huge impact in the game. How do you feel like IO does at this point in time, considering that she also sort of has that pocket potential? She can only heal 1 at a time.
I think that I think Smokey actually struggled at first in the game. A lot of his Begons were kind of hitting walls. He was getting pressured a little bit by some of the damage, especially from admin. But I think that you saw the potential from it. You saw them being able to just 5-man forward and push with that damage reduction, being able to literally directly counteract the Genos damage boost. If you're fighting someone that's being Genos boosted while you're healing them with getting healed as IO, you were literally no damage boost anymore. Plus, you're getting healed by a pretty significant amount. So I think the IO showed her strength on this map, even if it got countered a little bit on the mid fights and didn't quite keep up with the healing that Yoinko was able to put out. Actually, shout out to Yoinko in the damage department, out damaging the Nando on the other team too.
Yep.
And Zin actually out damaging his own Dredge. That Guillotine really added up.
Yeah, it did, and that's always something annoying to play into if you are a frontliner. Getting constantly Geo, that's rough for anyone. Doesn't matter who you are. But at the same time, they do have that Fernando to sort of counter out that. And we saw that a couple times. We even saw it towards the tail end of that, which is the type of awareness that we would expect to see on the side of Loading Vendors. Fernando played a huge role there. That ultimate is always beneficial, no matter what draft you have it on.
Yeah, I mean, it's beneficial as long as you use it right. That's the thing.
Right,
you can very easily have a bad Nando ult. You could just, ult for yourself in the backline where your whole team is dead. It's about using it to save your teammates when they don't expect it. That will really kind of swing the fight even further in your team's favor.
That was the European PCML. That's all we have for you in the Europe bracket. But when we come back right after this break, we'll be right into North America. Stay tuned, guys.
We brought the sound that shook the ground. There is a meaning buried within the sound. We brought the sound that shook the ground. There is a meaning. We brought the sound.
Back in, we're starting off the North American bracket with a very, very interesting match in the Bronze League. We just got done watching EU, but I'm excited for some North American gameplay. A little bit biased towards seeing my own region here, and I'm really, really excited to get into the matches for sure.
Fawn, you just like them because one of them is named Fawn Scott.
I mean, that's not that's not the only reason, but that does bring a smile to my face. I will say that.
Of course it does. And they're then versus previously Team TTV, now Team Imported Carries, here captained by Amos. These two teams going against each other for the semis. Merc and Keyboard are the team that has been pretty much dominant in this region, but I believe not necessarily living up to their namesake anymore, considering Merc has actually left the team. They've picked up Dink since then from Squid Squad or Cephalopod Crew, or however you want to word that, to replace him. And now they've gone to this potentially full keyboard team, depending on if Fawn Scott, aka Bon Scott, aka Quashi, aka Arcool, aka Impersonation, aka Wadu Heckington with a U, decides to plug in the sticks for the game or not. So some flexibility there, but picks and bans might be ready for game number one.
Well, let's head into picks and bans and see how they're going to start off this draft for the North American semis. I apologize. I didn't mean to say North American Bronze League if I ended up saying that. I didn't mean North American.
These are semis, not bronze.
Yeah, these are the semifinals. These are not the Bronze League matches. But in the ban phase, will they ban out the IO here? I can only imagine that this is like she's just a mainstay in the ban column now, like probably almost as much as Genos.
Yeah, I would say almost certainly, especially on some of the maps. Maybe not. Oh, no, this one maybe. It really is going to be map dependent. I think if teams want to play against it or not, how easy it is to deal with. This map has such an open point where the Luna might be a little bit easier to kill, but you never want to deal with the 15% DR and the burst healing and the kind of counter initiation ultimate that she has. And of course, the 5-man zone is the most crucial thing that I think she brings to the table. But 2 backlines eliminated by Merc and Keyboard here. Strix and Shaolin both kind of thrown to the wayside here, with Kinessa backing it up as well. So all the supports get through. Makoa gets through. It's an interesting look at this North American region, how different they are right now, kind of splitting off from what EU was bringing us before.
And it leaves open all the pocket picks, everybody except for Torvald, but obviously Merc and Keyboard, you leave open IO. They're going to lock in IO. Pretty understandable character to lock in. Too effective, especially with Luna, because important carries now have the ball in their court, can pick whatever they feel like, because Vivian is going to be the first one locked in for important carries. And meanwhile, you have the second pick for them, which I'm interested to see. It could be one of the healers, honestly. I mean, it could be the Genos, it could be the Corvus, but it's actually the off tank. It's the Rom instead.
I think they're not prioritizing them because IO was already picked up by Merc and Keyboard, so they just want to take other things that maybe they think deals with it or otherwise. But Nando is the next one for Merc and Keyboard. I'm assuming that will be shielding on the point. Surprised that Inara wouldn't pair with the IO. I still think she is decent, if not one of the better point tanks, but if they want to go the shield direction, I get that for sure. One more pick here. Flanker would make a lot of sense. It will be Koga for Dink on Merc and Keyboard. So a little bit of self-sustain, maybe dueling the Vivian okay. Ultimate, I think, can also keep him up in the backline. If they're just looking to buy time in the middle of fights, Koga definitely helps that, even if I think the Koga-Andro matchup is a little one-sided. I think the Koga-Andro matchup, if the Andro's playing well, can dominate it.
Yeah, especially when you have a Genos as well, right? I mean, that's definitely the healer you want to take with the Vivian, with the Androxus. It's very, very strong draft for them right now. Plenty of spread out damage on the side of imported carries. Meanwhile, Merc and Keyboard want to see if they can focus on this dive. They have the Fernando, the Koga, the Ruckus, and the IO. Tyra as well. Maybe they're worried a little bit about the dive that they have on the side of imported carries, that Genos might be a little bit more dangerous, unless it's actually, it could be a burn monster.
I was thinking hunting party, personally. I think that could be a hunting party to be like a second pocket to pair with that Koga. Kind of in a way. It's a pocket that is also a decent DPS on the side of things. Even though imported carries have picked up Genos and Corvus, they are now left with a solo tank ROM. So now maybe they'll pivot that burn monster direction. Pyra just tends to be kind of a flexible pick who really hasn't been touched in balance changes in a little while. So kind of sitting pretty and could be better than Victor in closer range maps.
And we've seen all 3 talents be picked up. We've seen Hunting Party, Burn Monster, we've seen Mercy Kill, so definitely a very viable pick. Let's head right into game on Ascension Peak and see how these 2 drafts are going to clash against one another. Scorched, I'm assuming he's not going to keep that one, but you were right. It was actually the Hunting Party is what they're going to go for here. They want to burn right on through it. Oh, yeah.
This screen, unlike the one on the Thursday PPC broadcast, is taken from endgame stats. So these are for sure what they're playing. There's no swapping here. So 100% it will be Hunting Party to enable that Koga a little bit more and also shred that ROM. Also, I think a big part of it having that extra bit of damage. I am a bit surprised to see that Scorch, though, on this what I'm assuming would be point tank Nando, but that could just mean that they want to get aggressive and already do. I don't know what Ghost is doing, feeding kind of on the point. It's Bon picks up 2.
Okay, Bon already gets a double kill, a triple kill already on the Ruckus. Bon Scott making this work out for him on the Ruckus. We blinked and the fight was already over. Now they have control over the point. Merc and Keyboard are now leading the very aggressive charge here into this draft. Rom throws away the Gatling gun. He wants to run in. He wants a piece and tries to at least stall for a little bit. Manages to touch onto the point, but Luna chases him down and manages to get the stun instantly. Overtime is there, but more than likely, no one else is going to be able to touch on the side of imported carries. I think that they are going to go down and out of this one. 1-0 already for Merc and Keyboard.
Just a really weird series of decisions, I think, by carries. I don't know why Ghost went on the point against a Ruckus and Koga composition that you know is going to be aggressive. Then Amos gets overtime but continues the run instead of stopping when you know Luna's there. He gets stunned, marked, and immediately torn to pieces. But here comes a potential engagement from them again on the back of this ROM run. But he just leaves, and Azif is still alive in the core of the Imported Carries team.
Yeah, it already seems like they haven't really been able to do much in terms of stopping these guys from rolling this cart forward. As now they're really taking control over pretty much every angle that they need to, right? Luna's on the point, rolling the cart forward, but for the most part, they are keeping them back. They got rid of Dink on the side, so that's something. Cataclysm as well. They want to use the Hexifier. Rom's already lowered. Not a good enough spot to really spread out any more damage, but it is enough to make sure that Rom has a hell of a time trying to contest against that. Messes up the projection and almost pays for it. If it was anyone but Ruckus looking at him, it may be a problem. But look at Vivian in the back, takes care of 2 of them. They get the next one after that. It's already right here. The Scorch is going to be enough to burn them down. They use the Koga ultimate as well. Enforcer, they have to try and get some way out of it by using the Juggernaut and give themselves that DR. They use it for Nano ultimate as well. They want to hold on to its fight. The Scorch, man, is so much. And oh my god, it's a full through time and space in the back line. That's enough for Imported Carries to hold on to this point fight. Oh my goodness. They're going to have to wait a little bit longer. What? Why did he put it down? Why did he put it down? Why didn't he just hold it?
What?
He could have just held it.
I was watching him target, and I'm like, there's no way there's no way, right, that he just wasted ultimate with not a single member of the enemy team alive. But no, only 30%, schmurdy% does not need it. And they have to sit here without that to keep himself alive. At least not being as close to that. But right now, Johnny may be overstepping a little bit on the side and ground being taken, but Merkin Keyboard can't necessarily finish off that kill, and they're looking just to pincer Amos.
Yeah, he definitely has to back off here on the side. As really Dink gets brought down soon after that. They don't really have much on the side of Imported Carries. They are able to touch, but oh my goodness, beautiful dashes on the side of the Androxus. So now he's going to move to the back line, take care of Bagel Wow. So the next one that might go down is a Fernando, and if anything, they are going to be able to keep that in the back pocket of their team. It is tied 1-1, so I mean, they were able to stall things out. Granted, they don't have a Corvus ultimate, but it's already back at 51%, so I guess it didn't matter that he ended up dropping it.
I mean, he'd be at 81 if he did. So now if he maybe would have had it in time for the dive that is inevitably going to be coming in from Merkin Keyboard on the back of this Ruckus. Unless they end up just playing it slow and kind of using the burn from Dink and the Tyra together to stop any aggression coming in from Imported Carries. Because if they kill Amos immediately, there's just no tanks. No tanks at all on the red team. So make things a little bit tougher. Amos having to rush that Chronos just to stay alive, honestly. Needs those resets if he wants to continue to tank. But that lack of cauterize will definitely hurt in the long run against the IO with solid healing here. But aggression, again, going to be how Merkin Keyboard start. But in a Curse Storm used maybe a little early, and Johnny has to cancel.
But he at least has 60% back. That should be back up in no time. But I'm more so concerned about the aggression here. They have the Hexifier. They have the means of stopping them from pushing into it. And the Immortal makes that even more likely. They use the Hexifier around the corner. Doesn't quite find the hits, but is at least able to try and spread out the damage as best as he can. Back up into the air, the Androxus goes, the Cataclysm gets dropped, they trade things out 1-for-1. Both supports on the side of Imported Carries have managed to get a kill. A double kill for the Genos already. Luna is on the point. He's going to get taken out, if anything. But actually, no, he does make it. He does manage to move it back as he's able to stall it all the way out into the very last possible health pool that Luna has. That is going to buy them some time to make it back to the point, and Imported Carries have had their progress stalled by Merkin Keyboard.
Dude, Johnny wants to ult so bad, by the way, but he just keeps having to cancel it. He is fiending for an ultimate here, and another time in space, Ghost just can't stop hitting these, basically. Bagel ends up falling, and they're just collapsing on this Vivian, but not making anything happen. Johnny wants to ult so another one used onto nobody again. I feel it's 3 accursed arms in a row that had no one to shoot.
Hey man, sometimes it's about sending the message. Sometimes it's about letting them know. You don't always have to use the ultimate, you know, but it is there. The presence has been respected. even if they don't get the kills from it. And it is enough for at least important carries to capture the objective. And of course, roll the cart forward, as is always the case whenever you capture the point. So there's like 2 kills from Merkin Keyboard, though, and it might stall out the progress that important carries have made so far and force the remaining members back and away from Merkin Keyboard.
It's almost like they met before this game and said, listen, we are pressing E as soon as we get our ults every single time. No matter who you are, I feel like everyone is just ulting constantly here as maybe imported carriers try to engage, but actually Amos just rotating, going to the far right to retake this space. And here comes another one, and actually had a target this time, but they disengaged, and this might open the door for the Ruckus.
Volska has to find a way out, but a beautiful void grip into the sky means that he's going to be the target of he's going to be the focus of everyone on the side of important carries, but they still even manage to get the kill onto the Androx as Vivian comes around the corner. They want to see if they can force out the fight, but beautiful firebomb as well. Rom has to make his way out of this one as his teammates have been dropped, but he's going to end up getting killed here as now they have to make it back to the point on the side of imported carries. Merkin Keyboard holding on strong on the defense here against red team. As as Io is firing a couple of early arrows up onto the enemies opposing high ground as they're trying to make their way back and gets a couple of dismounts.
Yeah, I mean, watching the way that this comp plays, I actually really like, I just want to mention this, that I really like the Tyrant into the ROM, because if you mark him during the run, it effectively cuts his damage reduction in half. It makes things a lot more difficult, I think, for Amos to actually live, but when no one else is shooting him, he'll be able to run in and out just like that. Run in, team dies, all right, bye, and he can just leave and settle for this. But they need to not get staggered here. These early picks that Merkin Keyboard are getting right now, these staggered picks that they're getting, is going to make things a lot harder for imported carries once they actually want to contest, because Amos now has to play kind of on an island and is already very low.
Yeah, already with the hunting party mark, it is enough to force him all the way out. He used the sprint to try and go through, cause some disruption on the side of Merkin Keyboard, but all they do is look at him, watch him run away, and then end up putting in more damage into him. Rom in the back, trying to see if he can take care of the IO, but they are ready to peel back. Cataclysm goes out, but they manage to dodge. Asdiff goes down on the objective, trying to stall him out a little bit, because they are going to get taken out of the fray here. But they at least trade things out 1 for 1, as Ruckus wants to move into the back line, see what he can do. So he is keeping him away from everything. Johnny already pretty low, but Dink and Toei, they end up going down. The Vivian is a little bit too strong, honestly. Hard for them to even make the fight work out, especially in a situation where Vivian seems to be finding these angles that nobody's watching and gets kills for it.
Yeah, if they can walk the Vivian in, that's of course when she's going to work the best, when Vivian is uncontested effectively here as Amos. They're getting close, and now the tank has to take over on point, but Rom is not a I'm going to stand on point kind of tank, as you can see. Right. Immediately, Dink walks in, tears him apart, and imported carries have to settle for a 2-2 now. Merkin Keyboard, I'm not sure about the credit advantage here, but other than imported carries, this Andro does seem to be struggling a bit into them. Elec is the one that's really cleaning up most of these kills. If we can see the damage charts really quickly here, we could maybe see a direct comparison of this. And yeah, Vivian running away with it, and Ruckus actually out-damaging the Andro, so a good performance so far by Bon here. As Cauterize is still only one person on imported carries has Cauterize 3, and I think now that we're in a later game, now that there's 4 caught 3s on Merkin Keyboard, this is going to be difficult for imported carries unless Elec pops off.
Yeah, maybe if he gets another sick through time and space on the side of the Genos,
maybe
it might turn things around for him. Toss up the Sentry Drone. Everyone knows they're on the left-hand side here. As the Androxy tries to use the ultimate, but it's not going to be enough. The Immortal keeps everybody alive, and they even managed to delete a couple members on the side of Imported Chaos. Beautiful Hexifier. I already knew that's exactly what he wanted to find. They have to play in the corners here, and it allows everyone to pretty much rush them down. They get the kill, and soon after that, they use the Entropic Breach. This is the time where you use the Entropic Breach, and it is going to be able to lock down a couple members on the side of Merkin Keyboard. But even still, Johnny makes it past the defenses of Merkin Keyboard, and he is going to be able to touch, get the kill on Toei, but they are backing up to try and deal with the Rom here. He's going to have to sprint out if he wants to make it away from this battle. 96% available to imported carries. They've caused the overtime touch. Since Rom has no sprint, I don't think anyone else can really make it to the point. Oh, never mind. Corvus just did
But there's no way.
No, there's no way.
There's
they're
no real way otherwise. They're not gonna get enough of OT. If anything, they're just feeding credits to
Right.
Merc and Keyboard that they can use to go forward with here is Dink. They're gonna catch Alek. Alek knows he's gonna die, so he'll just jump right off the map. And this long push starts, but they can just throw Io's Luna on the point and get forward to play with the team, and they can actually stay kind of in their face here, but can't play too forward now that the Vivian is back up. Is actually, I don't think they realized that Luna was off point, so Cart stopped for a little bit, and this is giving Imported a chance to strike.
Rom wants to move in, powers right on through most of them as Koga uses the ultimate just to avoid taking the damage from the accursed arm. Johnny, getting a little bit too overzealous, is going to get taken out of this one. They're trying to do their best. Bond is by the side, almost dashes off, but the Void Grip actually saves him, even though he still dies anyway. Hunting Party doing extremely well into the ROM. But I actually have a question, Chris. Is the Hunting Party, what is making it so different, so much more effective against this team, but people don't pick it all the time? What is it that they've managed to work out?
Coordination.
Here in the draft?
Coordination is a big part of it, and also the matchups as well is kind of a part of it, right? Like if you're playing into this ROM in particular, every time he runs, if you mark him, again, you're cutting his damage reduction directly in half, right? And if your team is moving together, like that collapsing on Johnny on the same target, that helps significantly too. But they all lined up for that Cataclysm, and Amos is going to keep going for more.
Yeah, Bagel's going to have to back out as Rom is pushing in. Luna is there, might get the stun, but may have already went through that being the case. Maybe not in range, but even still, he is going to go right back in. Amos is finding an opportunity to pretty much push into Toei, and it makes it hard for him to sit there. They are going to be able to eventually get the kill through time and space. He's going to go wide, not finding the mark, but they do get one. Johnny is down. Amos has to back up, and now, of course, that means Bond is free to do what he wants to with the Hexifier. Moves right on in. Double kill already for the Ruckus. 30 seconds remaining as they use the Koga ultimate as well. Not too sure why. Maybe trying to avoid a little bit more damage, I suppose, but Androx has to touch, but Toei pops that crossfire immediately. Merc and Keyboard take the first game on such a peak over the opposing team.
Yeah, and the double pockets and the Andrew are just stuck behind the tree near the end when Bond was able to just get aggressive on them with the Ruckus, made things very difficult for them to actually go back in. Again, having only one tank that's a ROM that needs to get aggressive for your team to engage really hurts when they have an IO, right? When they have a Luna that can just sit on point and their team can do whatever they want, turn and peel, while the cart can just keep rolling forward. If your ROM goes to stop the point, your team never engages. It really is a kind of a catch-22 that Imported Carriers had to play around, and Merc and Keyboard were able to abuse that and take advantage of this and end up starting this set with a 1-0 lead.
Yeah, and I think that really comes down to the coordination they've had. And I'm glad that's why I asked you about the Hunting Party, was because it's not a talent that we see all the time. Like I mentioned before, Toei does, not Toei specifically, but Tyra, we've seen all of her talents be picked up in these games. And Hunting Party is one of the ones that we see sort of the least, more than Burn Monster, but not as much as Mercy Kill is what I'm trying to phrase it as. And even still, it shows that it has some value. Tyra has a lot of talents that can be taken advantage of and used to the utmost ability, and we saw that work out because every time, what happened? Rom dives into the back line, he gets melted. Like, there's no question about that, right? He just gets picked apart by the backliners, by the team of Merc and Keyboard. Bon Scott, everyone decides to peel back, try and see if they can force everything out. 101k for Dink and 105 for the Vivian.
Look at the damage taken, by the way, by Amos.
Oh yeah,
just to give you an idea
189,000.
of what that Tyra mark was really able to do for the team. Whenever Dink and Bon Scott wanted to get aggressive, they just did it off of the Tyra mark, right? Toei can just mark and send them in, get some healing from Bagel. That's a huge swing in terms of damage taken versus damage dealt, right? You're taking 15% less, you're dealing 25% more. It makes things very hard, I think, to actually overcome unless you have multiple people there to help you out. Imported Carries now, they lose on the map choice of Merc and Keyboard with a kind of interesting draft. I feel like we might go to somewhere also unique for Imported Carries to try something else that might be a little bit off the beaten path.
It seems like it seems like based off of what Jithens was able to tell us, it is Jaguar Falls, so maybe not off the beaten path. Definitely a road that we've walked multiple times. as everything seems to be going crazy over by Kresnik. The Void is trying to claim. I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on, but even still, they are going to be able to head to Jaguar Falls, which is interesting to say the least. I mean, it is a map that everyone loves to default to, and we can head into picks and bans and see how they'll adapt their draft.
Yeah, if anything changes, I really thought it was going to be maybe something unique, but not the angle we're going to take. Imported carries think they can just play their standard draft here on a map that uses flat kind of characters. They can even pull out maybe Alex. They can pull out for Electrified. They can pull out anything else that they want here. But the bans will definitely decide the tone of this if they decide to get rid of that ROM that they had last time, or maybe they look in the direction of that Ruckus that Bond was able to use before. We've had a complete meta flip basically between Europe and NA as Ruckus ends up being the first in the ban column.
Yeah, and that's definitely... You don't want to deal with the Ruckus because of how aggressive it can be. I mean, we saw what Bond did in the very, very beginning of the round. A triple kill immediately on a Sitchin peak. That's just the type of dive potential and the surprising damage that Ruckus has in his back pocket, especially if you're not expecting a tank to really hit you that quickly for a good burst of damage whenever they use the rockets. Ruckus, Genos in the ban column on the side of imported carries. Meanwhile, Merc and Keyboard, they'd rather ban the Torvald and the Io on Jaguar Falls.
Yeah, after they first picked it, obviously they prioritize it at some level, so they're going to get rid of it. Imported carries, is it Rom here for them? Is it Corvus here for them? I think both of those are crucial, and also even Makoa, actually. Let me not let that one slip me by. Makoa locking down a choke point can help quite a bit. But picking this ROM this early, I feel like maybe opens the door to the Makoa from Merc and Keyboard, right? Because not only can Makoa block a lot of ROM's damage with the shield, he also kind of opens himself up to getting hooked by the Makoa whenever he tries to run, stopping those sprints here. Any form of CC helps significantly against that ROM. But Corvus and Koga instead will be the picks, kind of playing the Deadliest Sins style that we've seen in previous weeks and trying to make Dink do as much as he can.
Corvus and Koga is definitely a very strong combo together. And we've seen how well that can play into a lot of different drafts. But imported carries, I'm a little bit worried about the health pool on the side of imported carries, and that might be a little bit harder for, of course, Koga will end up farming a lot of damage. Make sure that energy is always kept up thanks to his talent, but even still, I'm not too sure. I still think it's even a little bit too much for him to blow through. I could imagine seeing a Cassie here potentially on the side of Merc and Keyboard, try and burn things down, and, oh, cool, there it is.
Why not?
All right, I guess everybody gets one.
Could have
Okay,
been Sky, too, actually, but...
Could have been. I thought about it, but I figured Cassie was the more common pick, if anything. It is going to be the Cassie to lock it in on Merc and Keyboard. And Fernando, of course, very, very strong tank. I actually think that people are starting to realize how much versatility Fernando has. I think because we've been seeing him a lot more. I mean, not just today, but as the PPC has sort of gone on, we've seen all this focus, all this talk about Anara, and yet Fernando gets changed, and we still didn't see him picked as often. Now we're starting to see it a lot more.
Yeah, for sure. The Nando, teams are definitely leaning more on him here. And I was actually right about the Lex. It is Jaguar Falls. I think it makes sense for them to go this Lex direction. But I don't know if I like it necessarily into the picks that Merc and Keyboard have so far. I don't know how it really matches up. I think maybe duels the Koga well, but just getting bullied, I think, a bit by potentially that Cassie, and the Nando can just put his shield in the way, but breaking it down with that ultimate helps quite a bit. Khan will be the next one picked up here. So Khan into ROM, I actually like this matchup because of just farming that overpower, right? Getting that overpower as fast as possible gets them executes more chances to completely flip the game. But I think biggest pressure here for imported carries is on the Shaolin. I think connecting that sand trap onto the Koga in the middle of the fight, if he can take down Dink early, then imported carries have a chance to tie this game up.
Well, you already have, again, the Lex and Khan are the final two picks on both sides. And I agree with what you were saying, man. I mean, I really, really think that it's going to be a battle between... It's really going to be a battle between some of these frontliners. How effective will they be into this ROM Anara composition? You have some ways to sort of stop it, but even still, I don't know if imported carries really have the means with their draft. We can only tell once we head right into game on Jaguar Falls. Will Merc and Keyboard take this one 2-0, or will imported carries try and tie things up? Seems like everyone's taking pretty standard talent. There's no IO, so of course he's not going to be going Scorch this time around on the Fernando.
Yeah, the only maybe thing that could have been surprising would be the, like you already mentioned, the Aegis
Right.
instead of the Scorch. I do still think Aegis is better for point tank situations, but they ran Scorch with it last time just to keep up that aggression, but maybe a less aggressive draft right now by having that Khan who is just a little slower in general. Now the point tank, Chris, actually uncontested, I think. No, Merc and Keyboard, the Nando, took that space back, but it's just a 4v4 fight in Jag. No one willing to flank, but Amos is willing to stay aggressive.
Fighting by the statue here. It seems like everyone's sort of really waiting for a better opportunity to find a pick or to find a kill. Shaw's really low. Yeah, he's going to be killed almost instantly. Merc and Keyboard, 30% to 15, as they have now gained control over the objective, means that they'll be able to garner some percentage on their own. As imported carriers are trying to find a way to sort of take this one away from Merc and Keyboard, but they might have to wait a little bit longer, as Koga pretty much is farming Amos right now. Pre-headshots, if anything. Toei comes around, manages to find that last hit, but Khan is going to get taken out of the fray.
Yeah, and Merc and Keyboard, even, I'm surprised they were winning that fight on the point, actually, because, I mean, Nando was just shielding, and the Inara was shooting. Nando just somehow managed to win cap time while doing 0 damage to the Inara. Just, yeah, Chris like a little bit scared, it seems, but now Dink ready to push with his Nando. That shield can definitely help them pocket. Amos is taking actually a kind of overwhelming amount of damage, and that Enforcer, that Juggernaut gets forced out, and they knocked Aztef in to maybe set up for a kill.
Seems like, of course, Koga wants to hold it down as best as he can. It is 2 minutes and 5 seconds still remaining. Rom is trying to hold the staircase as best as he can, and everyone else is sort of filing in one after the other to see if they can prevent them from making it up these stairs, because you don't want to forfeit that position. That very clearly is a sign of, oh my goodness, the overpower almost instantly. They take care of the Maldamba. The next one's going to be Rom. Amos has to find a way out, but I don't think he'll be able to. Immortal, very good Immortal from the Fernando as well. They're trying to find the hit around the corner. They don't get Lex, fine. We'll take care of the Inara instead, as she's going to be the next one that falls. Chris is out of the fray with 1 minute and 30 still on the clock. The cart is rounding the final corner to make this one a 2-0.
And look at this. I love the Nando pocketing the DPS. It helps significantly. And it's one of the better ways to use Aegis in general. As right now, look at this flank from Johnny and from Amos, but bullied is the Shaolin. They trade their Nando for it, but it's not that uneven.
And it seems like for right now, the fight has gone both ways. As there have been picks here and there, but imported carries have their members that were lost more readily available to him. They force out the Koga ultimate at least. He doesn't want to take any damage here. And it's interesting, seeing these sort of defensive Koga ultimates. I think we've gotten so used to seeing them being used when they want to get the kill. They want to be aggressive, but Dink's been using these very, very passively. Hasn't really done much of anything. Missed the overpower on the running Rom. I know that's who he was trying to go for. He's not going to be able to find it there, so they have to wait a little bit longer. At least 30, he'll get 30% of that back on the side of Khan.
Yeah, definitely not the easiest to connect, of course, on a ROM that's sprinting through you right now. And aggression actually in main, but I like the reaction from Broken Keyboard. I like how they take the left in response here, but I don't necessarily love how they kind of abandon their back line to make it happen, is they're probably going to lose Toa here as well.
You lose Azdiv too. Now Khan's one of the only members remaining, along with its 2 DPS, but there's no healer. I can't imagine they'd be in the fight for much longer either. Toa gets picked off. Von Scott goes down too, as he now finds the kill thanks to Koga. He's at least able to get the kill onto Elect, but Johnny, of course, trades that one out as the round is ending. We tied things up at a 1-1. Slash lines don't look too bad on either side and are having a bit of a rougher game. But even still, I mean, both teams, this is pretty close. These fights haven't been extremely one-sided.
Yeah, I would agree. I think imported carriers were able to defend pretty well, but the issue was the mid fight, where I felt like Merc and Keyboard were always in control here. And just to answer chat, someone asked, did Merc change his name? No, Merc actually is done. I think he just was not necessarily interested in playing anymore, so he quit the team, and Dink moved over from Squid Squad to replace him on Merc and Keyboard. Just can't change their name, or else they will lose their seeding points so far. So forced to bear the banner that they were slapped with at the very beginning here. But imported carries, I want to see what changes up for them. Instead, okay, they have a Gord on point, but I don't know how much that really changes. Is Amos, the aggression, maybe that's the real difference in pace here.
Even Inara had to back off of point for a couple more seconds. They have Dread Serpent, so they have to worry about the PO here. Lex comes around. They manage to fear the Fernando, and he gets killed soon after that. There's no one else really to sort of stall on the point on the side of Merc and Keyboard, but they at least were able to trade one out on the right-hand side there. Khan is busy with the rest of the DPS and the healer, trying to see if they can force things out on Amos, but it's like he's just free-firing into him.
Yeah.
They're trying to sweep him around. They want to move into the back line. Chris is there along with his DPS to see if he can help things out, but the DPS actually abandoned him a little bit. The wall goes up. Chris has to back off. They force out a seismic crash, and it uses nothing. It pays no expense at all, as they end up using the loss soon after that, but they still don't get the kills they were looking for. And Merc and Keyboard, they take this one by storm. Even Amos gets killed on his way out. Man, that was a little bit too aggressive. I mean, it was cool that Chris was up there with his DPS, but they backed off immediately, way before he had even rounded that corner. Maybe it was a bit of a miscommunication there, but even still, they are at least able to get the final pick.
Yeah, I think maybe needed to use that seismic crash earlier just to force out that Immortal, but no way they're going to actually cross the gap and get in here, especially with Bond stopping Amos mid-run. Imported carries have a lot of good positioning. They will get that first pick, but actually the second too. The sand trap, so crucial, killing that Koga.
Toa comes around, manages to get the last hit onto Johnny, but even still, Elec is the one on the tear right now. They killed him, but so does Asda falls down soon after that. The last member standing on the side of Merc and Keyboard on this push is now Rom has to. Okay, was this streak big enough for him to end
No,
it
but I
that
think
way?
he might have been trying to get back to spawn as fast as possible to buy something, or I don't think his streak was that good, but either way, he dives straight off, and now Asdif getting aggressive on the right. They actually lose Johnny. Maybe they kind of wanted their Rom with them, but I guess not, as they just get the floor wiped.
Yeah, it seems like for right now that they are able to at least hold on inside of Merc and Keyboard. They're pushing it through Secret. They all grouped up, realized that they needed a little bit of help in Secret, and they win that fight. Amos, taken out of the fray as a minute and 30, manages to submit itself on the clock and is steadily decreasing. Cart has been rolling forward. Merc and Keyboard are trying their best to fight back into the opposing side. It seems like they've been continually pushing. Oh, Amos is in the back, but Cataclysm is just going to get used, and he might end up just dying for this.
Yeah, you don't Cataclysm a Koga
Yeah,
in
you
a 1v1
really
with
don't.
you when you're
Right.
a ROM and he's running Adrenaline Junkie. There's a lot of factors there that make that not necessarily the best play, but right now, the only DPS are up, no tanks for them, and they have to be careful. Elec is way too far forward, barely staying alive.
It seems like for right now, they are at least forced back a little bit. They take care of Johnny as now Elec comes around the corner, sees if he can find the shots necessary into Koga, but all he does is back up, get healed, and Amos is dead on the point. Chris is the only one really remaining that can really stall for a considerable amount of time, but even he gets forced off of the objective, and it allows Merc and Keyboard to make this into a 3-1.
And KD's, I think, in favor currently of the DPS on Merc and Keyboard being enabled pretty well by their Corvus. That's what happens with a pocket pick when you have that there. And the ultimates, I think, are going to really be what will potentially close this game out for Merc and Keyboard here. Maybe not necessarily the Cyclone Strike on the Koga, but having those two very impactful tank ultimates in general. The Immortal plus the Overpower either execute someone or guarantee that your team can't get executed in response, get taken down by any of the CC. Plus, the scaling in general is not there for imported carries. They have 3 hard CC ultimates and a lot of resilience getting picked up by Merc and Keyboard in response. But another Jag meetup here. It worked well for Merc and Keyboard last time. We'll see if imported carries change anything.
Already, they use a seismic crash. They want to use it in secret, but it forces out the Fernando ultimate, but it actually keeps them alive. Amos dashes through everyone, but that big game is going to play a big role in this next fight as the Dread Serpent is used to be defensive. Tries to peel people off. Damba gets killed in the back line. He's trying to run away. Chris has no more DR. He gets killed next as Elec is the final nail in the coffin. Merc and Keyboard can now push forward, try and keep them from getting back to the point as they're looking for some early dismounts. Dink's trying to stop people from making their way in. They're just trying to find what they can. Amos, of course, is going to throw away the Gatling gun, sprint all the way in, see if he can make it there, but he has to sprint into the back. He can't even go anywhere. Overpower gets landed. They do manage to find the pick, and they throw him off out of sun. If anything, Amos is locked in a 1v1 with the Koga on the side, but no one else is able to touch that entire time. They're just capping and Merc and Keyboard. They take it 2-0.
You know what probably would have helped a lot?
What? Somebody touching?
Touching the point.
Yeah.
I would say. And this is why they pay me the big bucks, Fawn, for my expert level
Right.
analysis.
Yeah, right.
Rom, instead of 1v1ing his counter, I would say touch the point. In response, a really hard game for Amos there. And that was a first pick Rom too, right? That was a first pick Rom.
Yeah.
that was really struggling there. I mean, I know that ROM can make room regardless of what's on the enemy team. Even if they pick hard counters for you, just make it very difficult. You can still make it hard for them by forcing them to turn around, but a really hard game for that Shaolin. Also 4-11 for him, even with some decent, I think, long distance CC. But again, the DPS enabled really effectively by that Corvus and those tanks able to put on so much pressure to them.
Yeah, and it seems like, based off of the slash lines themselves, that I mean, if you didn't watch the match previously, if you saw this screen, you'd be like, yeah, I know who won, right? It's like it's seeing the 11-3, the 2 11-3s, the multitude of assists on the side of Merc and Keyboard, and of course the damage numbers, 96k on Toa, and a lot of that was attributed to Amos because of the big game. Look at how much damage he took, leaps and bounds over everyone else, 128,000 on the ROM. That big game means that they're going to have that big damage and be able to count out that ROM very easily. Every time he stopped sprinting, Toei was on it, and he managed to burst him down quick enough.
Yeah, definitely. I think the big game was a big deal when it came to how Merc and Keyboard were able to play that. Even just sending them away from their tanks anytime they wanted to push onto the Nando, push onto the Khan, they were taking big percentage damage that hurt them significantly. But I think the Koga was one of the stars in that game for me. I think Dink, on one of his more comfortable picks, just helped him duel those DPS or those tanks. Even Amos really couldn't do much whenever he had to meet up with him anytime they were fighting. Just he would delay them the whole time, and delaying against a ROM counters out what that ROM wants to do, which is delay against you.
North American semis are accounted for. That means Merc and Keyboard move on to the North American finals, but you'll only be able to see that right after this break. Stay tuned, guys.
We brought the sound that shook the ground. There is a meaning buried within the sound. We brought the sound that shook the ground. There is a meaning. We brought the sound. We brought the
Welcome back to the Paladin Central Minor League. We're back in the North American Finals for the final set of the day as Merc and Keyboard take on Team Eugene. An interesting name, but definitely players that we have seen before throughout the weeks.
Yeah, Team Eugene, kind of a hybrid team here, and actually a couple different names on this team that I think have actually, I want to say they've changed since then. I know that both of the subs we have listed in front of here for us actually play in this game. So Pick, Pip, and Sign Arena are both in here. I'm not sure exactly for who, but we'll see, of course, when we manage to get into that game. But Eugene, kind of a hybrid of some of the teams that have been playing in previous weeks. Eugene was also a team that played like 3 weeks ago, or 3 months ago, excuse me. It's kind of like a rebirth of that team, but they have to play against Merc and Keyboard, who just looked great against imported carriers, have looked great in previous weeks, even if they kind of struggle against Squid Squad before, who I don't think that they actually just bypassed this week. Squid Squad's still riding high, I guess, after their previous success.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the type of success that you would want on your team because of the fact that this is like Squid Squad have been trying their best to see where they can place in the rankings, and then for them to do as well as they did last week, you definitely love to see it. But we're going to get into the current matches, picks, and bans. But once again, Merc and Keyboard versus Team Eugene for those who didn't hear, and also are now watching up on top of the screen there in the overlay. So the first map will actually be Splitstone Quarry. It is not Jaguar Falls. It's actually going to be Splitstone this time around, a wider map. People don't typically start on this map, but I mean, I don't mind it. I love watching Splitstone.
Yeah, so I mean, I love Split personally too. I know that there was a while where in North America people liked it, and in EU it was like a timber mill level joke map. People were just like, they just banned Splitstone every time they came back in. But Eugene starting off with a Torvald ban here. I think that's pretty much standard, but a double flanker ban coming out from Merc and Keyboard. Pretty much, it's a very different look from their first set in the last time. They had a double backline ban. Now, really shifting priorities to me. Maybe these are just targets against. Sorry, I just saw something hit my window. That's why I saw something yellow like come right to the window and then fall away. So a little bit worried. But Makoa banned out. Both Genos and Corvus are available here, and one of them might go here. But it could even be Rom if Merc and Keyboard want to try to be aggressive.
Zen, Androxus, Torvald, Makoa.
Oops.
And then there's the IO. Yeah, if you leave the IO open, it can be a little bit harder to try and handle that objective timer when you have to worry about the sixth player in the game, which is Luna, capping the point the entire time while her team just pretty much pushes you out of certain areas. As the Ruckus is going to be the first pick on the side of Eugene.
Makes
This
sense.
is obviously a very, very hard dive sort of comp that they're going to try and go for here. But of course, Genos and Corvus are both open, but it's actually going to be Ruckus Rom. The double R is not going to be rest and relaxation this time around. It's definitely going. You're not going to be relaxing against these two. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, they're not going to give them a chance to at all. Just super aggressive comp from them right now. And Nando, maybe just to stem that aggression at least a little bit. Nando and Koga. Merc and Keyboard have completely changed, I think, their style of drafting here. Just to enable Dink, I guess, having this Koga picked early. I mean, Koga was great into the ROM, but into ROM and Ruckus, I don't think it has enough sustain. The Koga pick, I'm not sure if he'll be able to live through it all. But I don't know if Koga's going to be the target. I feel like it's going to be that IO bringing
I
down
agree,
Ion.
yeah.
Doesn't really handle dive well until that Begun is charged up.
Right, and then you managed to pick off the Genos as well on the side of Eugene. I think this is a very aggressive and even better, possibly better performing draft the Merkin keyboards might be, especially when you have a damage amp like Genos on your side. There's a reason why he's banned more so over Corvus, and it's that damage amp. That 15% comes in handy when you're fighting a lot of those one-on-one battles. Of course, Koga, Cassie to sort of stop the health pools or sort of diminish those on the side of Ruckus and Rom. But even still, I'm not sure how I feel about the Ash locked in last.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how that's going to be into Genos, in all honesty.
it's not bad, but just from looking at this, I don't really understand what purpose the Ash serves here.
Exactly.
Because they look almost like a counter dive comp right now, because there really is no proper dive target. The Genos and the Vivian are going to be playing together. The Rom and the Ruckus plus the EV are going to dive a little bit more aggressive. I thought maybe a Khan just to play like a hard counter dive with that big game could have worked out a little bit better, but they'll just have to make sure their dive is faster than a Rom Ruckus EV dive.
Well, Merkin Keyboard versus Eugene for the North American Finals winner. Let's head right into the game on Splitstone Quarry, as this will be interesting to see how this Ash sort of plays. She went slug shot actually, so she'll be playing a more backliner role. I guess to just help peel for that IO. I can't imagine that she would try and be as more aggressive into Team Eugene, because all they're probably going to do is just they're going to focus that IO. That's what they want. They know that's a target they can get consistently enough, because IO doesn't really have the escape to make it out of a lot of those fights.
I mean, Slug in general is just really flexible. It's not necessarily a backline Ash, it's just a sideline Ash that can, control space but still actually apply pressure to you instead of just being like, ooh, don't come over here,
Right.
and putting on a threat that way. They can actually be a little bit more active in their control. And I mentioned it right now, you'll see this sideline, but look at this Bagel kind of alone, but no one else really diving, and Yui getting destroyed early, but Mage Monkey comes in.
Actually does go down. The first on the team to follow. Toei is the next one. As really Fernando tries to push back Ruckus, if anything, and it's a little bit too much to try and handle, as everyone's getting forced back and away from the objective time and time again. And it's already making it a big problem. It's harder for Merkin Keyboard to try and make it back, honestly. I mean, they're either getting dismounted or they're eating so much damage on the way in. It forces a lot to be desired from the IO healing, so you can only really focus one at a time. The minute that Fernando gets there, you already see he's dropped to no HP, and he's going to even get killed.
Yeah, and this IO contesting the point, but can't really do anything in front of an entire team that's still waiting for them. Pip cleans up too, and the pressure is still on from them. This team is just getting overwhelmed inside here. And someone in chat actually really quickly just wanted to mention that Cassie wasn't on big game.
No, she was not.
Into Rom Ruckus.
Yeah, no.
The Rom Ruckus fun. That's like the big game duo that you can play into. Maybe you add Makoa to that also, but the Impulse, I don't really get what it's doing. Maybe making life a little bit harder for Eevee, but that's it.
Yeah, I'm not too sure the reason as to why you wouldn't pick the big game anyway, because of the fact that you need that to sort of shred that Rom and Ruckus. There's nothing else to really do in that situation. So that's what you are. You are that tank shredder, because who else is going to do it? Koga? I mean, like Ash? Like who's going to stop Rom and Ruckus from diving into the back and make them think twice about having to take some of those fights, right? I mean, they don't have to worry about a big game. It just means that occasionally they'll be hurt time and time again, and Bako goes down again.
I guess he didn't have the lead because he couldn't use it to get up to that high ground there. Says Asdef just trying to delay the point as long as possible with Shuxi's doing this, but they have both the tanks here, and actually for each other are the tanks on Eugene. This shield completely denying the damage from Bon and completely locking this out as them, but they use a great assert dominance.
Already, it seems like the Merkin Keyboard are going to at least be able to force some things out, as Eugene has to back up. Let's see if he can move away from the rest of the fights here. Koga obviously going for any early dismounts. A Sage or Mage Monkey is just going to chill over here on the side and wait for a better opportunity. Pip going down. It might be a little bit harder for him. Through time, its space is going to go wide. They don't find the hit that they were looking for, and Merc and Keyboard end up with 2 kills, but this is what they wanted. Ruckus moves into the top as he now has to force back the Bagel Wall. Use the Cataclysm to see if he can stop things from going any worse than it could have been, but Yui still is going to get taken out.
Have you met my friend?
And this high ground control by Merc and Keyword is going to make things very difficult for Eugene, I think, to actually make this actually get through here. It's going to have to be a really strong dive to work it out, but they have the Nano Shield to play behind. It will be difficult to burn through that unless they have a great surround here, but actually Booby Trap, Bot is just getting bullied by these knockbacks, and Yui's already deep in the back line.
Cataclysm already goes out, but all they wanted was the Fernando Shield to be down and him unable to peel for Bagel Wow. As soon as Io gets killed, it means that the rest of them are going to keep doing what you're seeing right now, and that's move even deeper into the back line. They even forced out the Immortal in the long run as Yui gets taken down, sure, but Toei is at least able to trade things up for his team. The rest of Eugene, though, are making sure that they have those kills. They don't care about being in that back line, and we can see that work out for him very well as Asdiv is the next one to fall. The Void Grip goes out, catches him in place, and it's going to be enough to kill.
Yeah, and we'll see how Shuxius can control this left side here. Not a lot of tanks with him, but the tanks are absorbing pressure on the other side to make it so they don't focus into him right now at all. Yui just running into the point and setting that kill up for the Vivian as well.
Making sure he keeps the overtime bar still there. Doesn't want to step off at all. 2 kills already. Toei peeks out, tries to find the last hit on either of them, but it's not going to be the case. 2-0 for Eugene so far, and ultimately a very unfortunate start to this set. If you're on Merc and Keyboard side, if you're on Eugene, you're feeling you're sitting pretty. Silent Arena is 1-0-16, hasn't really been killed. The reason why I mentioned earlier the fact that I felt like the Ash was going to play backline was because we had talked about how hard we knew that Io was going to get dove, but they tried to push forward into them, and then you saw both Yui and Sage Monkey just in the back, just killing her. Like, and she couldn't get out of the situation. I thought he would play a little bit more back, but they wanted to be more aggro.
Yeah, I mean, when they run both these tanks in, they can't really deal with both of them at the same time when the Rom and Ruckus are collapsing on the same target. And there's a discussion in chat right now about Rom, but at this level, when a Rom goes into your backline, just the fact that you have to turn around and deal with him is enough for the rest of the team to make up that space that you're making, right? As long as you start your dash in a good position. But they're actually playing it really defensive this mid. This Rom's so passive now, but they're just burning the point tank. But now they're getting flanked by this Koga.
Rux and Eevee are in the back line trying to see if they can force anything, assert dominance immediately to see if they can live for a little bit longer. They've already found 2 kills. Now Rom's peeking around the corner. He's trying to see if he can get the hits. The sprint goes out, gives himself the DR as Eugene have to back up. Merc and Keyboard have turned this fight around and more so in their favor for Team Eugene here as they are pumping damage into Yui as he has to back up 78% to 21. As Ruckus is there and going to be able to touch. Eevee does get killed on the way in, but they are able to touch and cause overtime. They're losing 2 members, though. It seems like Rom in the back might be in a bad spot. He is able to touch, but they get the kill. On Io, there's no more Luna. They can't touch. But he gets disengaged off of the point. A very good disengage bolt from Toei. Isn't able to touch. They get the kill on Bond, sure, but they've already gotten 2 kills towards the tail end.
Yeah, the Yui not able to get the next reset here, and luckily for them, they managed to keep that point control overtime really not set up for them. But again, they're gonna have to push into this high ground with almost no high ground control. What is this? It's gonna have to be what, Koga climbing, Koga climbing up to them to actually take that high ground. Definitely not going to happen realistically. But Pip actually ends up falling to this Koga playing with his team here, and now they can use this number advantage to take this space instead.
Seems like things are going more so in the favor of Merc and Keyboard. Not sure why he used that there. Nothing really threatening him, but Bagel Wow can't say nothing wasn't threatening him as he's going to get picked off by the Ruckus once again. Dove into the back line, and they're just going to pick him off from that point on. Bon Scott, Asdiv, both go down, and now, of course, Yui's out for blood, looking for any remaining member. That might be some stragglers trying to retreat, firing the Gatling gun, trying to make it worse for both Dink and Toei. They do find Pip as Ruckus moves into the back. Will he try and use the Hex Fire? Doesn't seem like he will, but Bagel is going to get killed. That was one on his list of things to do. Get Bagel first, use Hex Fire second. May not have found the mark, but they do get the kill, and that means they don't have a healer for this next engagement here as Yui has to find a way out, but just run straight on through Toei.
Yeah, he knows he's going to die, so might as well make as much damage as he can before you go. Maybe could have gotten out under lower, but probably honestly would have just staggered his own death. So trade 1 kill, get down, you're on defense, you're going to spawn a little bit faster. Trade's always a net positive for that team. Right now, though, low ground again, Merkin Keyboard, no real way to get up top. Unless they hit a knockback here, Shucks gets knocked back and could get picked, but no one's really there to follow up. It's only Asdef holding a shield, and everyone else is focusing on that bottom left flank, but not really being watched by anybody.
Vivian looking for a better angle. He's trying to see if they can pump damage into Asdef. Notices Bond is in the back behind their healer. Fires the shots, and of course Koga is up on top of high ground, trying to see if he can force them down. They're trying to get rid of that Genos, but he's pretty slippery. Not going to be able to catch him. Bagel Wow is going to get... Okay, he almost got killed, but I still think it might be curtains for him. They're pretty much grouped up in a corner, and they got pretty much destroyed. Triple kill already for Shuxius on the Vivian, pumping them full of lead. If anything, Toei has to try and find a way back out. Summons the drones, but at the end of the game, it's going to be 3-1, as Eugene have been consistently in control of this map.
Yeah, the control that they have from their dive tanks is really showing here with the KDs. Bagel top deathing in the game. So definitely struggling to stay alive with this super aggressive presence that they've been able to have here, running them over. Plus the Eevee following up on them as well. It makes it so hard, right? Let's say Bagel uses his jump and gets away from both of them if they collapse on the same time. And then suddenly he lands and gets 850'd in the chin by Pick Pip. Can't really live through that. So very, very difficult game, I think, for Bagel. Has to play properly around his team. And if his Be Gone isn't perfect, if his Lunar Leap isn't perfect, he just can't stay alive. And look at this. They're already taking the high ground above him.
Yeah, it already seems like Rom is in a better off spot than most of Merkin Keyboard are right now. They are melting Luna, and she is now out of the fight. And of course, that means that they have plenty of time to pretty much keep them locked down over here. Dink uses the ultimate. Sage Monkey has to back off, assert dominance immediately in by Fidget Spinner, seeing if they can lock down whoever they can find. Pick Pip is killed. Dink looking around, trying to find a target. He needs to find someone to damage to help out his team, but it seems like Yui is already have a different plan in mind. He wants the back line. He wants to see if he can come on, if he can get to Cassie in the back. 58% to 12 for Eugene.
And we have some time being held, some space being held here, by them. They have both of them on the high ground, and over time caught by them. Genosalt not connecting on anything, but the tanks coming back from respawn might still have a chance to do this as long as they find one early pick, but the Immortal is going to make things a lot more difficult.
Toa is still in the back. They use the Immortal to keep each other alive. They do take care of Mage Monkey as well. He is back on the point to at least touch for a little bit longer. It's going to be another overtime touch for the most part, or not actually, as they're going to be able to capture the point. Merkin Keyboard do manage to work that thing out for them as they make this a 2-3 already. Pick Pip gets killed, and now you have a situation where Eugene are stuck in their spawn, and the exact opposite of what happened last round. Now Merkin Keyboard are the ones in the lead here as Dink tries to find people to pump damage into, but not quite find it. He's going to back up, wait for his team to, of course, the cart to roll a little bit more forward before he tries to take over Mineshaft. 3 already in there, really 4, as he can't really take these angles against both the Eevee and the Vivian.
Yeah, Bagel streaking right now, I think, shows the change in pace for them. The fact that they're playing around Bagel just a little bit better here, but maybe not close enough, because it seems like Mage Monkey has found a completely open path, and there he goes. And I'm so sorry that I've cursed you, Bagel, as I might end up losing another one here as well. They end up not trading out with that, but everyone else is falling that was already still committed. Merkin Keyboard will have to back up and reset. They really had to roll with that, I think, a little bit further. They needed to push through while they had them off of the high ground, but now there's a Vivian on high ground again. They have no real way to take it unless they can sneak past them without them watching.
Yeah, it already seems like Shuxius is just holding on to high ground, looking for different targets. The minute that somebody peeks, exactly what's going to happen. Everyone's going to get really pumped full of damage. Pick Pip does find one onto Bagel. Bagel is really struggling this game, honestly. It's hard to try and peel them off of their backliner as Ruckus moves in. They even get a kill on Asdip, Toei, Bonscott, all of them killed in a matter of seconds, as Eugene have not given up the spot here, pushing past this high ground, getting past them, making it back to cart. Seems to be an endeavor that Merkin Keyboard are struggling to make work for them. Because now, of course, Rom, everyone's just holding high ground. They're just keeping them away and everyone's getting dismounted on the way in, so it's hard for them to try and find a situation to work for them. They might use the assert dominance, but I don't think they will when the score is 2-3.
Yeah, again, it's just Viv being up top is very, very difficult
Yeah.
to bully through the booby traps, even hitting them around the corner. And again, if they had a tank that could take it, maybe that would help a bit, but no way to make that happen. Toad taking that duel is basically the best way to make it happen, right? Just a disengage to send the Vivian down so they can take some ground for free. But they get in actually under a little bit, and no one's watching Dink on the flank. That could be an opening for them, but they're making their own opening on defense, diving on Bagel.
They are at least able to make it back to the card, but Asdiv eats so much damage, they just peel back and deal with him. Now the rest of the members have to funnel onto the point if they even can. Bagel, Toei, Asdiv, everyone just getting murdered time and time again. They have 4 ultimates up on the side of Eugene, 5 for American Keyboard. Granted, Vivian's ultimate is still active, so it's not like as if they are down an ult. She definitely has been using it this entire time. It's hard to forfeit this. It's hard to force them off of the high ground. They've got a good number of ultimates to take this one, to take this objective if they need to.
Yeah, the ultimates are going to have to be what will get them this cap, but they're also going to need them for mid, and then maybe they don't charge him back up in time. So it'll be difficult for them to actually use that smartly, I think, but they do have better ultimates on American Keyboard, I think, than Eugene do. It's all CC or Hexafire ultimates that kind of be walked away from. The best chance that Eugene has is a combination here, right? Use the Ice Storm, catch someone in that for a time and space, do the same thing with a Cataclysm maybe. There's a few setups, but they're playing it safe, they're playing it defensively, and actually they're kind of just throwing Io away as Vivian's just there to shoot her.
Yeah, they burn Luna off of the objective, and all they were able to garner for themselves was 17% with that half comeback mechanic, if anything. They even get Pip as he tries to see if he can force something into the back line. Dink was there, manages to fall back and deal with him. But through time and space, goes out, doesn't quite find it, just a Hail Mary, trying to see if they can find anything. They know that they were they know they were by fidget spinners, but they don't quite find what they were looking for. Immortal gets forced out as well. Rom runs through everybody, positions himself in a good enough way, and this is what they want to do. They use a Hexafire as well, the Ice Storm, the whole 9 yards, and they're going to be able to find a good amount of damage spread out between everyone. Not the kills they were looking for, but they are at least able to find a good enough position to keep Merkin Keyboard at. But even still, they actually managed to trade it out. They turned that fight around for Merkin Keyboard.
I mean, the Ruckus barely surviving there. If Toa got that kill, maybe things are different here, but there's another fight chance still here for Eugene. Luna goes on the point and actually forces them on, so good use of that, even if Luna immediately falls. But the tanks have a lot of space being controlled, and they don't see Shuxius on the flank.
Yeah, they go wow. It's going to get brought low again, but this is what they want. If double off tanks are going to run in and find the opportunity to take care of that healer. Even Bon Scott can't make it out of this one. Dink uses the Shadow Step, tries to reposition himself and stare at the objective, sees if he could try and get them off of it, but it's not going to be enough as the rest of Merkin Keyboard fall flat. And now Eugene are going to get a zone, see if they can get those dismounts and see if they can win this game.
And holding here is Eugene. They have a lot of ground already being taken basically by them, and no one's going in the only angle that's not being watched. The bottom left, it might have to be Dink, I think, like skewering in, but he's wasting a lot of energy early, and I don't think there's a chance.
It already seems like Yui is going to at least find, Dink forces out the ultimate, and that forces out the ice block, respectively, from Pip. Bagel Wow has to back up. Ruckus was just living in the back line. They even get the kill on Bon Scott. He has the position in a good enough way. Shuxius with another triple kill, and Yui with one. That's going to be Eugene 1-0 on Splitstone Quarry.
I mean, Shux was in the perfect position at the end of that fight. If you're Vivian, you just want to be slightly to the side of the fight, just barely not taking focus, but close enough to be out of your fall-off range. That's exactly where he was. He was in Saw. They knew they had to focus on point. He got a triple kill just on the people kind of collapsing themselves onto that objective and never really needing to reload because Vivian. So Eugene, I think a really strong draft, kind of just abused that first pick IO that Merkin Keyboard tried to do. They protected Bagel sometimes, but they're basically saying like, all right, we're going to first pick this IO, and then if we play perfect, we can win this map. Whereas Eugene kind of gave themselves a comp with a lot more leeway, and it helped them significantly in the end.
Yeah, and that's a rough slash line for Bagel. I mean, 115 and 16, but even still 15 deaths. It was just so hard to peel them off of the back line, and I don't think the Impulse Cassie might have been the play there. I definitely think if they would have had that big game, it would have been a lot easier to play into that Rom and Ruckus. Maybe they would have even been able to save Bagel a couple of times had that been the case, but the slash line is looking a bit rough on the side of Merc and Keyboard. Meanwhile, Eugene, we're doing perfectly fine. 146,000 damage on Shuxius, and evenly spread out damage taken between both tanks on the side of Merc and Keyboard. It was hard. They were playing a little bit more back if they could. It just was rough for Bagel Wow to get anything started.
Yeah, Bagel just couldn't survive. And look at that slash line. It is definitely partially, I mean, it's partially on Bagel, but partially on the team not really having a comp really great to play around them. I never was really impressed by what Bond was able to do with this Ashe, and I don't think that's a him thing. I think that's just a comp thing here. Very difficult to play that character into that composition. There were some times where it would do some decent kills. Assert dominance is of course always a good ultimate, but I still really would have liked an overpower, liked a con to help them peel. You know, if a Ruckus dives in, catch him with a commander's grab, that's a couple seconds of him not shooting that'll let your IO maybe get out to safety.
Yeah, and there's definitely a few things that I feel like they could have done better a little bit in the draft to see if they could have more so manipulated it to their liking. But even still, like you said before, maybe a con would have been able to help deal with that backline dive. Once again, counter out anyone that may be trying to move into the backline. Anywhere that Ios is going to be able to go, Ruckus can definitely follow. Rom's more of a grounded character, but Ruckus can take advantage of any sort of height platform that they'll actually be on. So, of course, with that being the case, I think Con would have been a very good option into that. I mean, hell, go for the Grover. Go for anyone. I mean, I know it's a bit of a wider map for Grover to sort of play on. It means that people have to group up a lot more, but I don't think the IO would have really helped out a lot because the Luna couldn't really do much either on the side of Merc and Keyboard. It was just getting melted into that Vivian, into a lot of those hit scan targets. Vivian and Rom both looking at him. It means that Luna's going to get burnt.
Yeah, it definitely didn't help when it had to get thrown on point. It's best for 5-man zones, but it's good for desperation touches when you don't want to throw away a player, right? Just having that there,
true.
I think helps significantly. And the next map, Pixelman's not available yet, but I do happen to know that the next map will be Stone Keep. And Jithan told it to me, but I actually looked it up myself and knew it would be Stone Keep. But IO still will be fine on this map. I think if you want to play it, it would have to be outside, but I think you have to ban those dive characters if you're going to make that happen, right? Especially with Atlas comp banned with that ultimate bug that he has currently right now. Right. If you go IO and leave the same dive tanks open and you play outside, normally with a really pokey comp it can work, but if you don't have that peel from that Atlas or from a Con or from a Nintendo even sometimes with Aegis, it can hurt significantly when you're not able to put that damage through or just have that CC, that setback is so helpful when you have that. But fortunately, Atlas will not be in the picture here. But this is a map where you can play blasters, you can play ranges, a lot you can do. And I think this map really shows the team that has the more flexible game plan more than anything, because you can play mid in so many different ways. You can do a hard wrap, you can stack one side, you can play point focus to stay on your side of the map completely instead of taking a kind of vertical side of the map, I guess. There's just so many things you can do, and if you're a more flexible team, you'll tend to be the one coming out on top on Stone Keep.
Right, and we can head right into picks and bans for Stone Keep to see if they'll be able to close this one out on the side of Team Eugene. Merc and Keyboard are down a point. Maybe they'll try and draft something a little bit more different, and that also goes to show that IO, sure, she is a great character, wonderful pick in your draft, but she still has weaknesses. Luna may be a very, very easy time to sort of just drop it onto point, worry about the dog capping most of the percentage, but it's problematic when you have to deal with the fact that she can't really spread out healing like that, and also the fact that she has a hard time dealing with dive. So great character to pick, but not great on every single map. Ruckus, Genos, and Torvald out of the mix here, and Io is going to be the final ban on the side of Merc and Keyboard. However, Stone Keep is a map that she is actually pretty good on. Yeah,
if you can play around her well. Again, it's definitely the bigger part of it, but they are leaving Makoa open, and Eugene smartly, I think, take that immediately. Half shell Makoa buys a lot of space here, and very tough to deal with if you don't have a great answer, and there's not really that many great answers. And Merc and Keyboard prioritize this Koga super early. Again, they really feel the need to make Dink comfortable as they get that for him. Corvus also paired with it. So that, again, this Deadliest Sins composition that had been working for them, Merc and Keyboard are kind of adopting it for themselves, and we'll see how having the only pocket healer left in the game works for them.
Seems like for right now, them having that Corvus has an advantage for them. They'll have plenty of sustainability on their side. But Eugene already drafted the Makoa and Rom this time around, and the Grover. I really like this draft that Eugene sort of have so far. If Koga gets crippled, then he can't use that dash and give himself that sustain that we see Koga doing typically so well in a lot of those 1v1s. And there's never going to be a time where people 1v1 because there is a Grover. This is definitely a very aggressive sort of keep side comp. They're going to try and take it over as effectively as they can. And then you see that they have the Koga, the Corvus, the Fernando on the side of Merc and Keyboard. Sure, they've got sustainability of their own, but they won't be able to contest against Team Eugene, I feel like.
And they got that Tyra to deal with the ROM again, which I do kind of like. I also think it's okay into the Makoa, especially if you get a firebomb into the half shell to force him out. But that firebomb will also kind of feed the half shell a little bit of percentage by burning away at it, so he will get some free cooldown even if you manage to avoid shooting at it. The draft from Eugene so far is kind of monstrous, though. I think having Makoa, Rom, Grover. I was going to say this could actually even be an outside draft, and this Vivian might necessarily help with that. It could be help on either side as well. So they've drafted a comp that can work on either side of the map. But I think Merc and Keyboard are kind of in that same vein so far as well. But they're going to go triple DPS into this. Maybe they're trying to get rid of a character for Rom to dive and shred this Rom a little bit faster. But that might open things up for the Xin to get in. And they also let Vivian away to the last pick.
Vivian and Lex for the last two picks to round out both drafts here. Lex, pretty strong pick in the right hands, but I don't know how it'll fare against Team Eugene as we head into Stone Keep. This Corvus is going to be the pocket pick for Lex here, and that's going to be a pretty good way to sort of sustain himself. I still think it's a little bit still a little bit more of a worse draft in my personal opinion on the side of Merc and Keyboard. I don't think their draft is bad. I think it might struggle into Team Eugene's draft more than anything, though.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I really hope that Fawn Scott, aka Bon Scott, switches off of Death Hastens. Oh, having a Tyra, having a Corvus plus add Discovery to that, that is a ridiculous amount of damage boost and pocketing, which is what enables the Lex the most. That's why Lex has been such a strong force in the competitive meta recently. It kind of fell off when this patch came out, which is interesting because all these pocket picks are kind of coming back. But Lex is being banned from the teams that like to pick it. And I'm actually right now looking up the stats for this phase of the PPC, even though we're watching the Amateur League, just to see how successful Lex has been recently for people in chat who might doubt him. Lex is tied for the second highest win rate in the entire PPC at 62%. So it definitely can succeed played well with pockets. Take a look and see what they can find with it. They're playing outside and they're managing to control the point for now.
Well, it seems like Fernando just been garnering percentage on the point. Meanwhile, Vivian focusing on whoever she can, whoever she has a line of sight on, you can bet that they're going to get fired into. That shield is slowly breaking down. Fernando is low, so of course that means that he can't stay on the point anymore, but that's going to be enough to kill Toei. That booby trap lands directly next to him and blows him up. Meanwhile, Koga's playing in the back a little bit more so in the line of sight of multiple members of Eugene and has to back off. Doesn't want to get killed too early, but Yui decides to go for the battle in church, forces the shadow step out of Koga and forces them all the way back as you have 60% to 51.
Great control here from them, and gonna make it hard for Merc and Keyboard to actually burst through here. Dismounts already coming in from Yui, I think, positioned pretty well here to stop that. Dismounts are just so difficult to stop when they have that ground here, but Eugene, they get that right away. I think that's to be expected here. And now we need to see something coming out of this Koga for being picked first rotation. It really needs to actually look successful here. And I feel like it's really struggled. Look at that knockback by the Nando dash. What? Sending the ROM flying away. Interesting choice on the loadout here, I guess. You don't normally see that, but Yui going in and already making some space.
Already seems like Mage Monkey trying to find a better position. They want to use the Cataclysm to keep themselves alive, see if they can get a better lockdown on people, but that's not going to be the case. And here we go, back to the Vivian gameplay. This is what you came here to see, focusing on so many different targets. Anyone that steps in the line of sight, they're going to get fired upon, and you see that happening time and time again. Pip goes down, and Dink has to use his ultimate just to escape. Fernando comes in and manages to put up the shield. And of course, Corvus is there to make sure that Koga is healed all the way back up. There's a minute and 30 seconds still remaining on the clock, and the car has been halfway there, but they're at least stalling things out against Team Eugene. I'm just worried what happens when they put their foot on the gas. Might be a little bit more difficult for them to work things out for them, and that's exactly what I mean. Rom moves all the way into the back. They use the whirlwind as well, counter out the engage here. Vivian immediately turns around, and you already have a situation where Bond's forced off a high ground and into the waiting and opening arms of Team Eugene. They find the whole team to wipe out of the fight for this and for a few more seconds as the cart wants to keep on moving forward.
And now just a ridiculous turnaround there. The Ancient Rage on point. Not an ultimate that really sees that level of value anymore, but they managed to make it work. Yui, though, dropping down from the high ground and running away. This cart just getting to the choke now. It wasn't close enough to guarantee this capture, but maybe they can guarantee this kill on Astic with this CC chain.
Oh, wow. Beautiful CC chain on the side of Team Eugene. Nobody else is even really able to touch Merkin Keyboard. They lose another round, 2-0 against Merkin Keyboard right now. I'm concerned about this Fernando being ultimate. I mean, that, yes, also. But also, I'm concerned about this Fernando standing on point, and he's going to get ulted by Zen. Like, this is a rough time for him, because if there's any time where Zen decides to ult him, it's going to be hard for him to stand really anywhere. He may not be able to get that percentage he got last round because Zen didn't have the ultimate then. But now that he does, that means that Fernando's in a more is in a worse off spot than he would have been last round.
Yeah, it's not Guillotine, though. It is Yomi, so they will be able to potentially save him from doing that here. But they are definitely missing the most impactful ultimate, I would say, that they have here. Eugene able to take this high ground early. Look at this wraparound by them. They're kind of bailing on their Corvus. They finally turn around for it, and maybe this Crossfire finds the ROM, and it does.
They're doing what they can. The Crossfire is the only ultimate that seems to have been used so far. Everyone else still holding on to what they got. Meanwhile, Pip in the back line, trying to see if he can take care of Bond. May have bitten off a little bit more than he could chew, but shoots into the counter around the corner, and they're going to be able to find that kill onto the Lex. They only lost one in that engagement. Meanwhile, Rom's running right on through and makes his way all the way back to the objective. No matter, just bringing out all the stops, honestly. Stink is trying to win this fight one-on-one, despite having other members around. He's still going to be able to win that. Rom does go down, and of course, she drops down on point and finds anybody to sort of shoot at. But Bon Scott is there, does find the last hit, and is able to get the kills. Double for him, one for Dink, and Merkin Keyboard are now in control of the objective.
And how forward Merkin Keyboard goes depends on if they have a chance to retake on the side of Eugene or not. They have to do something to stop this ROM. You know he's going to be able to Juggernaut in. There's no way to really stop him on their team, but I'm afraid Yui might have started it too late. No, he makes it just in time, and he lets Sage Monkey get a chance to get in too.
They even use the whirlwind. They want to start things off. The Entropic Breach on point, trying to keep everybody from making a move on the objective, but it's not going to be enough. Sign Arena, Sage Monkey, everyone goes down against Merc and Keyboard, but Pip actually finds two. Wait, him and Rom are in the back line. They're actually wreaking havoc back there. They got Pip, and they actually force out the Immortal. They don't want to lose. They don't want to lose the hold they have over the objective right now. They know Shuxius is playing in keep, but that's a little bit too much damage even for Tyra. That's too much damage for anyone when you're going up against a Vivian like that. They are able to at least get rid of Shuxius. That makes it a little bit easier for them on the push.
Yeah, they have to ult to make them feel like they're getting the worth out of the early picked Koga here with Bond, trying to be aggressive with his team. I don't know if I love this run-in from Yui. Okay, he does manage to get away. I was going to say, if they stop him at all, he is not feeling too good about it, but they're just waiting for their respawns here. If they go in and trade kills, it's better since they're on the defense. Cart, though, can't really move too much more forward. They have the high ground being taken completely on the side of Eugene. No one able to really fight them because of this triple DPS comp. They can't contest with the second tank.
It seems like for right now, they are able to at least roll the cart, mostly uncontested, but obviously Eugene aren't going to let that be the case for the entire match, as it forces out the remaining members of Merkin Keyboard to retreat, gain some more advantage just based off of their numbers and reposition, so that way they can retake the objective once again. Or it seems like Team Eugene aren't going to make it any easier for them, as it does force them back. Rom is actually going to get ulted by Lex in the back line. They take care of him. That's one member down, but when he respawns, he'll already be right back into the fight. They drop down the half shell. Don't shoot into that, as they're going to focus their eyes onto Pip instead. course, they find the damage, but they don't find the kill. Shuxius finds one on the Bagel Wow, though. This Corvus is taken out of the fight.
And they rotate over to catch the Lex. They know that he's stuck over there. And Sage Monkey is in a great position. Finds a second kill for his team as well. With only 30 seconds left, things are going to be difficult for Merc and Keyboard to convert this, especially with the ults that they spent. I think just play to get Bonscott some ult charge so you can have the Law again. I don't know if I necessarily love using the Law to execute that ROM earlier. I think what you would probably want to save it for is to delete the half shell from Makoa. If you can take that reset character and deny him a chance for reset and deny the value from the shield for one fight, that's enough to win it out. Toei unable to make it to the point in time, and credits are just going to go rolling into the pockets of Eugene on this defense here. Down no ultimates. Effectively, Shux has his drones still, and Merc and Keyboard is still far away from the Law.
4 ultimates alive and well for Eugene, but the same can be said for Merc and Keyboard. They've got at least an equal ultimate economy in terms of ults that you would label as very impactful on either side. But now Whirlwind, I mean, they used it to move in last time. I wonder if they'll try and go for the same sort of opportunity this time around. They have the Immortal, though, so it might be a little bit hard for them to shake that Fernando off the objective. But even still, only time will be able to tell how everyone positions, and of course, retakes the fight. Eugene are obviously going to go back to keep and try and maintain control over that.
They're actually still holding outside here. Yui just waiting to bait. I don't think he saw Dink, but Dink actually dismounts just to shoot him. Dink could have done a hard flank, but kind of gave his position away. Shuck still kind of uncontested as these tanks get aggressive.
Yeah, it already seems like it forces out the Immortal from Asdiv. Meanwhile, Pick, Pip, and Shuxius are looking at Bonscott. They find one pick and Tropic Breach into the church as they now take the kills by storm, honestly. Everyone else on the side of Merc and Keyboard can't quite contest as they have been killed off. And everyone else has to make it back. And they actually stagger Bagel. That's super late. And that's absolutely huge to be able to get a kill on Bagel that easily. They don't have a healer on the way in. Now Yui has to back off, but they're fighting a man down. Sure, Corvus just respawns, but that's hard to fight into that.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for them to actually get in. I think key here might be the Nando, but no one's actually capping right now. They go for fights on it, and they take down the support. Actually, Dink trades into Sina. That's a big advantage for Merc and Keyboard.
Asdiv still trying to contest against Pick Pip just having a free time on the objective, firing at whoever he sees fit. As now it seems like Dink is trying to force something on the Mage Monkey. Triple kill for Bonscott as Yui has to find a way out of this fight. He goes down here. Might be all she wrote, but Merc and Keyboard, they retake the fight and retake the objective, actually, and thanks to comeback mechanic, they will be able to capture themselves another point. It seems like Eugene almost had it, but they do end up winning out in the end on the side of Merc and Keyboard. Now Rob's just running through everybody, trying to find any sort of way to spread out the damage. The half shell gets dropped, the crossfire is there, they turn around, look at Mage Monkey, and now they're fighting by fireplace. They're fighting too many targets to sort of shoot into. They have to concede fireplace, but Shuxius is up on the high ground the entire time. He even took care of Asdiv as Pick Pip peeks over the side, finds the kill on the Toei. Now they're looking at Dink. They find Sign Arena. Shuxius are both down, but they do manage to make the trade more even for Team Eugene, as it forces anyone else that's on the side or still remaining out of the fray.
Koga trying to climb up the hedge, but unfortunately, hitboxes are difficult things to figure out when you're trying to climb walls here for them. Playing out here is Eugene. I've always talked about how triple DPS is okay on the mid fights, but just never can convert or defend. And I think we're really seeing that struggle here. But look at this double ultimate being used, but I'm pretty sure Shux has legs, and legs kind of counter Koga ultimate, and Dink gets isolated in the backline.
Dink gets killed. That's a member down on the side of Merc and Keyboard. It puts a stall on the aggression and the offense that Merc and Keyboard wanted to have. Of course, everyone else that is still remaining has to try to find some sort of way out. Bagel's just sort of stuck in the corner. Manages to make it out, though. He does have a team to be able to peel for him for a little bit longer. Yui using that DR to his advantage. So he runs around, tries to get the knock up, get extra healing. Not going to be able to find it, but he is still going to live as his teammates come back and are at least able to help him out. But this time, I don't think he'll be so lucky. They do take the kill against Yui. That's going to be 45 seconds on the clock. They do make it back. The cart is still a good ways away from making it to the final point as they get the hook directly onto Lex, but they don't find the kill.
Yeah, he manages to slide out. Lex able to utilize that kind of burst mobility to escape those situations quite a bit of the time. But again, it's so hard for them to actually break through. This half-shell aggression is very hard to deal with here, and burst damage onto Bon Scott makes him get taken down.
It seems like counter goes up, manages to deflect against Koga. Pick tries to back off. They peek around the corner. They do manage to at least get the kill onto Zen. The crossfire is forced out on the side of Merc and Keyboard as they want to try and roll this one in. They want to make it even for them. Shuxias finds the last hit on the Asdev Master, but they're losing members by the second. They're dropping like flies. No one else can really touch to cause the overtime. They'll be able to dance on and off, but there's too many squishy members. They don't have the health pool to last. And the score is now 3-2. They won't be able to roll it in despite how close they got. Merc and Keyboard looking better as the game goes on. Asdev, a rough game, 0-10 and 13. Same thing for Toa, but they're still trying to make this work for them, and it's working. They're using these plans, using these sort of ways to position themselves better, trying to find the picks a little bit early, be more aggressive in certain scenarios. It's making it way better for them.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to make a point about that struggling Nando. It's kind of just his lot in life into this composition, I feel. What does he kill? Right? He's not going to kill the Vivian. He's not going to kill a Rom. He's not going to kill a Makoa. He just has to appeal for people. He just has to shield and kind of accept his demise. Eventually, as the fight goes on, the Immortals have to be crucial, which means he has to get some ult charge here at the very start. But Eugene, they continue to get this upper area uncontested. Get stuck here. Look at this aggressive dive followed by a Cataclysm.
Cataclysm already. They know that there's a party in church and everybody's invited. They use the Immortal, try and keep themselves alive. Same thing can be said for the Whirlwind. They use that defensive Immortal, try and back out, but they're still on the hunt. Team Eugene moving in, trying to see who else they can find. They took care of Fernando. Who's going to be next on the hit list for right now? Yui's on the side. Looking at Bon Scott. Runs right on in and manages to find plenty of damage. Pip, of course, is chilling in the back, trying to see if he can fight whoever and get those hits. As it tries to move in, he has to use the ultimate, but he doesn't have the ult. If he ended up having it, it would have been a way easier time for him to make it there. Shuxias with the triple kill as the Entropic Breach gets dropped on point. That stalls him for a little bit longer, but it won't be enough. Team Eugene take this one 2-0 over Merc and Keyboard.
These games just keep ending up with Shooks on the side next to the point in the protected area. He's positioning correctly on Vivian, and it is helping his team thrive in these endgame situations. I love the aggressive dives with the half shell. When you play the half shell, it can work passively if you have great backlines to pocket with it, but they kind of had a brawly comp with the Vivian, with the Zin, so just send the Makoa in, drop that shield. If they shoot it, you're going to have another one in 2 seconds anyway, and if they don't, you've bought that space in the center of their team. It's why these players and these teams are picking and banning Makoa, because of the ability to just go in and take that space without any real way to contest it. The draft by Eugene was brutal for them to play into, and you can tell by how the players on the side of Merc and Keyboard were able to perform.
Yeah, and I think that it's good that you brought up the fact that Fernando knew he was just going to die anyway with how the fights were ended up going. We don't have the stats for this game, which means that that's all that we have for you today in the PCML. It was very interesting to see the European and North American brackets sort of go toe-to-toe with one another. Eugene are going to be able to take the win over this one. I think that Zen really played a huge role into how those fights went a lot, especially the Vivian. I mean, every time Shuxias was able to take high ground, they couldn't really contest. There was no one that could, and it always seemed to start off the same way. Asdev will go to point, try and get any sort of percentage for his team. Shuxias was already up on the high ground. Asdev gets forced off, and everyone groups up, and then you see what happens in church on that very last round. Everyone groups up, and that's exactly what Eugene want. They want to be able to use those AoE ultimates, force them in a very uncomfortable position, and force out ults like the Immortal to make Merc and Keyboard eventually lose.
They also were just, what do they have to take high ground, right? Nothing. I mean, they have Lex, Koga, Tyra. No one is crossing that gap. But again, yes, Koga can take high ground. In a fight, he's not going to do it. It's the slowest thing ever. It's like he's practically climbing Everest with a hook, like hitching it up and pulling himself slowly. He is just a free target while he's doing that. So no way to contest him meant that keep control for for Eugene was even harder to deal with, giving them their first place finish here and actually giving Merc their second place finish in a row. This team really needs to figure out what they want to do in this meta or they're not going to be in this position that they've been in the last couple of weeks, months.
Right, exactly. And hopefully they'll be able to fix that in the coming weeks. But that's all we have for you of the PCML for today. We went through Europe, we went through North America. Once again, thank you guys all so much on behalf of me, Kresnik, and Jithan's work in production, being a little bit BM to pick Pip and chat I saw a couple of times. It is great to be able to sort of have this on Monday, be able to start off your week correctly. And I really, really enjoy Paladins. Thank you all so much. We love you. And Jithans, you're able to close it out now.